quart, les propostes dels socis, que no s'han presentat propostes, i el cinquè punt de l'ordre del dia és el torn obert d'intervencions. Quan comença l'assemblea? Doncs aquesta assemblea, una assemblea que abans de donar pas als diferents punts de l'ordre del dia, comptarà amb la benvinguda del president als compromissaris. Recordem que estan convocats 4.494 compromissaris i que es tracta, com us dèiem, d'una assemblea diferent de l'anterior, que era l'assemblea ordinària. Es tracta d'una assemblea extraordinària, perquè hi ha una sèrie de decisions que per estatuts han de passar per l'assemblea i aquest és el cas que ens ocupa. Recordem que l'Assemblea és, doncs, l'òrgan suprem de govern del Futbol Club Barcelona i que els acords que aquí es prenen són vinculants per tots els socis compromissaris, així com també per la Junta Directiva. Aquests 4.494 compromissaris que estan convocats a aquesta assemblea són els 3.570 socis escollits per sorteig, els senadors, els membres de la Junta Directiva, els membres de les diferents comissions, els expresidents i els presidents de les federacions de penyes.
Bona tarda.
Good afternoon to everyone.
Gràcies per la vostra.
And thank you for your presence here today at this extraordinary general meeting called by the Board of Directors of the Football Club Barcelona. We have 337 delegates that have been registered, and in the second call, 337, we can say that this meeting is officially constituted according to Article 29.3 of our bylaws, of our Articles of Association. I would like to say that we have a notary public here to write down and to take note of all that takes place here. According to point 34 of our Articles of Association, the opening, well, is responsibility of the President, and he has asked me to, he's delegated to me. I give the floor now to Mr. Josep Maria Bertomeu, the President of the Board of Directors of Football Club Barcelona. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for being here today with us at this extraordinary General Assembly. You may remember that it was on the 29th of October we had an assembly, a very important assembly. Today's meeting will be shorter, but it's not going to be, however, less important than the one from the 29th of November. Today, we would like to present to you for your consideration some topics that are extremely important for our club, and we ask you to ratify, if that is your opinion, the decisions that have been made. These are economic issues, most of all. These are agreements that will allow us to continue to enjoy an excellent financial health in order to meet all of the objectives that we have as a board of directors for this year, 2016 and through 2021. We would like to continue to be leaders in the world of sports and to be one of the most beloved clubs and one of the most admired and global clubs in the world. The first point today is Mr. Manuel Arroyo, the President of Marketing, is going to talk to us about the proposal of Rakuten to be the official sponsor of the club for the next 4 seasons, which means that as of next season, 17-18, that will be the name that will appear on the game jerseys. You will remember that at the last meeting of the ordinary general meeting, we said that we would be having a meeting soon to approve a new name, a new sponsor. We believe that this responds to the desires and the expectations that we have considered. Rakuten, as Mr. Arroyo, the Vice President, will present, he's an exceptional partner for us, a young company, innovative in the world of technology and digital, and they're going to help us to grow and to expand. We also would like to say that their president, Mr. Mikitani, already explained to everyone that they understood the values of our club. But before going to the second point, I would like to say that I don't want to forget the Qatar Foundation nor Qatar Airways, and I would like to very sincerely thank them for their support over these last few years, because without them we would not have been able to reach the economic strength that the club has. The president of the Qatar Foundation and the president of the Qatar Airways allowed us to create a more sustainable and more competitive Barcelona. Now, I hope that you will approve then the Rakuten as our next sponsor. The next point will come, the information will come from Mr. Calgrau, our Executive Director. He will explain the agreement that we want to have with Mission Hill Group, a Chinese company, to develop in Hainan a school, a very large school, and a space for experiences of Football Club Barcelona, which it's in the south of China, and it is an agreement that we had for 10 years, and now it is up for renewal for another 10 years. So we have to vote for this. We believe that it's a great agreement, it's extremely relevant, that will allow us as a club to push forward the growth of football in the Asian continent, and of course China, a country that is clearly, making a move in this area of football, and Barcelona, of course, will be there to help them if we approve this. Our interest in this country is considerable, as we have seen recently in communications. We have recently signed a strategic alliance with the University of Peking through the FCB Universitas, to have a knowledge and innovation center for sports and to work with the management models. Mission Hill Group will allow us to extend the concept of football all over the world and to be economically stronger, and it will allow us to generate more resources, and most likely it will help us to be more well-known all over the world and to be more notorious, more recognized all over the world. The third point for today, Mr. Jordi Casagmilla will share with you a detailed explanation of the current situation of responsibility, and I will inform you of the proposal that we have from the governing board, from the board of directors, and that will be presented to you for your approval. Thank you very much.
Fins aquí la benvinguda del president Bartomeu. Ha explicat que la majoria de les decisions que avui es posen a votació són decisions fonamentalment econòmiques que volen mantenir el lideratge del Barça en el món de l'esport.
Per poder portar a terme la presentació d'aquest punt,
To present
demano
this
la
point, I would
intervenció
ask
del
for
vicepresident
the Vice
responsable
President
de l'àrea
responsible
de
for
màrqueting
the area of marketing and
el senyor Manel
communication,
Arroyo, perquè
Mr.
dirigeixi
Manel
el
Arroyo,
sistema
so that he
de
can address you and explain the proposal.
Bona tarda a tothom.
Good afternoon to
Efectivament, com
everyone.
el president Bartomeu els hi ha referit,
Now, as President Bartomeu said before, today we are bringing an agreement to you for your approval.
general ordinària els hi vàrem anunciar que
We
estava a prop
mentioned this at
de ser
the
aconseguit.
ordinary general meeting of 2
L'acord que els
months
hi portem
ago,
a
and
plantejar va ser
now
un
it is
acord aprovat per la
complete.
Junta Directiva, com dic, és l'acord
This is the agreement
com a sponsor principal del
for
club els propers 4 temporades de Rakuten.
Rakuten as the main sponsor of the club for 4 years. Rakuten is a company that has the exact profile that we were looking for as a company whose headquarters is in Japan, but they are totally global.
el fet d'associar-nos nosaltres és buscar amb aquesta recerca de ser més coneguda arreu del món, perquè evidentment la seva expansió està centrada en els Estats Units i Europa i Àsia. A Japó us podeu imaginar que Rakuten, que és on comença l'any 97, és prou coneguda i els seus negocis estan absolutament
companies all over the world, but they want to go further. It is one of the most innovative companies in the world of technology. There are many well-known names, and Rakuten is one of the reference names. It's one of in the Forbes, it is in the Forbes list as always present among the 20 companies that are most innovative in the sector. So therefore, to talk to you about the figures that show what it is we are asking you, this is a company created in 1996 by José Tame in Kobe. They have 13,500 employees. Last year they had $6.9 million income with a profit of... They are present in Japan, Europe, the Americas and Oceania. And their brands that are... They have Rakuten Rebates, Wyver, and Waki Television, which also began in Barcelona and in Spain as a company of video services for downloading, for watching films, and it's present in 22 countries. It's a company that is also quoting on the stock exchange in New York. It has a long experience of e-commerce and digital contents. In Japan, they have many other businesses. This agreement would be in the area of telecommunications, banking, and travel, and restaurants. The denomination, it would be the main sponsor of the company, our global partner in innovation and entertainment, and as we said, it would be 4 years long. The agreement is of 55 million euros per season with 2 bonuses. One if we win the Champions League, an extra 5 million, and 1.5 million if we win the Spanish League. This is something that we have already explained at different moments, and now just as we explained Qatar's offer 4 years ago, well, this would make us leaders in the price paid for this sponsorship. The rights that Rakuten will have is the presence of their name on the shirt of our first team, and also on the tribune together with Nike. It is now Nike and Qatar Airways, and that will be changed as of the 30th of June. If this is approved, it will be Rakuten. Their logo is also present in the north sector of the stadium. They will also have advertising on the LED screens and behind the goals, and they will also be present in institutional and press conferences, etc. They will also have presence in our sports facilities, also internet, all of the communication to you, to our fans, to our supporters, and to our members. Diver is a communications platform that also becomes Rakuten, and that will become one of our systems. We will have the best player of the season that will be voted digitally through these platforms. With the rights that are given to the first team, they have the possibility of having a spot or a commercial, an advertisement. They can go to practices. The board of directors can meet the players, so we guarantee one game in Japan or wherever, a game somewhere, a match that they will indicate. They have hospitality, tickets to the matches both here and abroad or in other arenas, and the celebration of events events
establirem,
at the
evidentment,
club.
una col·laboració amb el club de futbol propietari de Rakuten, que és el Vissel Kobe.
The Vissel Kobe is their team, and we will have a relationship with them as well. These are the main points of the agreement, and this is what we are presenting to you for your approval.
Moltes gràcies.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manel Arroyo. Now let us open the floor for comments. Before doing so, I would like to tell you first of all that you have to give your name and your member number, and the questions are specifically about this topic that we are discussing for ratification. And finally, we ask you to ask them to be very specific questions and not to take too long, so that everyone will have the opportunity of participating if they wish to. We will do these one after another, so you'll have to go back to the rear where we have the microphones, and when we have asked all of the questions, they will be answered from the panel.
Doncs aquest és el moment de les intervencions dels
No hi ha
comissaris
preguntes?
sobre aquest punt. Sembla que hi ha alguna qüestió.
Sembla ser
Després
que hi ha
d'aquesta
alguna pregunta. Sí.
presentació
Ara
del vicepresident
hi ha
de
un
Màrqueting
compromissari
i
que vol fer
Comunicació,
una...
Manel Arroyo.
Yes, there are some questions
Escoltarem
here.
aquesta intervenció.
Soc Josep Maria
I
Vilomara.
am Josep Maria
El
Vilomara,
número de carnet
and
és el...
I am the member. Let's see, I can't see it.
Perdó, no ho veig, és igual, no?
Sorry, I can't see it.
Un moment. El carnet és el 92... No, 39 723.
39,723.
Jo estic molt content
I am very happy for that we changed the name on our shirt because I didn't like Qatar, and I'm very happy for this change. I'm happy with Rakuten. The only thing I don't like is that on the television program you can go to adult films, and this could lead to pedophiles taking advantage. Everything that Rakuten offers shouldn't have anything that leads to this type of activity and violence. But apart from that, everything is fine. So perhaps I'm a bit too sensitive. I congratulate you because this company is much better than Qatar. I don't like Qatar, and well, here everything that has to do with the media, well, all of these extreme pornographic films should not be there.
Moltes gràcies.
Thank you.
Hi ha una pregunta més?
Are there any further questions?
Hola, bona tarda.
Hello, good afternoon.
Soc en Joan
Vizcarri Esquius. 4,665 is my number. And in the last assembly, the ordinary assembly, the ordinary general meeting, you hear all of the questions and then you answer them once they've all been asked. I said that the agreement with Qatar, there were better offers, and 15 days later, the agreement with Rakuten came. So you didn't answer me at that moment. I asked if there were better offers. So I think you extended Qatar, even though Mr. Arroyo said that these agreements take a long time. But if it was done 15 days later, we could have done Rakuten for this season, and we would have had a benefit, a profit for Barcelona of more than 20 million euros. Could you answer that, please?
Sembla ser que no... Bueno, sí, un altre, sisplau. Un altre compromissari vol fer una...
Bona tarda.
Yes, good afternoon.
Ignasi Gené,
Ignasi Gené, number 47375. I don't want to say anything about the new sponsor. Well, the important thing are the figures and the numbers work. But what I do feel bad about is to see that once the board of directors sign the contract with Rakuten, it will appear in all of the newspapers, on television, and on other media. And they, well, accepted it as a done deal. But then we are called to a meeting to ratify this. Well, I consider that when there are elections and they vote for a board of directors, it's because we trust that board of directors, or at least those that represent the board of directors, in the same way that the board of directors can hire the players that they think are appropriate and the many other things that they have to decide. This should be one more of those. If they consider that this is the adequate sponsor for the club, then I don't think it's necessary for all of us to be here to ratify the agreement an agreement that has already been agreed upon. So I consider that today here I am not really here for any specific purpose. We could have saved our time and the cost that an assembly of this nature requires. So I think we should reconsider the possibility of changing that point in the Articles of Association in order to make sure that issues such as these can be decided by the board of directors, as you actually have already done, and not require ratification, because really we're just going through the motions here. We're ratifying something that we know is a done deal, and well, the fact that it's calling us here to ratify something that's already been agreed on is to a certain extent is an insult. So that's my thought, and in part it's a complaint on my behalf. Thank you. Thank you. There are no more questions. Very well. Let us go on to the responses. Yes, to the first of the questions at this moment. Well, during the assembly, I'll answer before we finish, but I don't know if there's an adult section for Rakuten, but these companies are very careful in this type of services to do it professionally and properly. But in any case, during the assembly, we will answer if they have an adult section, and we will, I don't remember your name right now, but we will communicate that to Rakuten. Mr. Vilamara. Now, concerning the delay or the fact that 15 days later it was made public, well, the only thing that I can say is that if we had been able to announce it at the ordinary general meeting, then, well, we would have, but the agreement hadn't been finalized, and it may seem strange to you, or perhaps not appropriate, but there is a certain rhythm for the negotiation and for the work done, and what we cannot do is to jump the gun. I mentioned in the previous meeting, the previous general meeting, that we knew what we were looking for and that we were working on it, but obviously there were criticisms that could come, but we did our work based on what we understood, which was the best for the club, and for this reason we were forced at that moment, because it wasn't closed, we didn't have a meeting, we didn't have an agreement in October when we had that meeting, and then again in July we had an extension for a year with Qatar, which gave us this time to talk to other companies such as Rakuten and finally achieve this contract. So I would like to repeat, if at that moment we acted that way, it was always considering what was best for the club.
La pregunta que ha fet el
And the
soci
question
senyor Ignasi Jané,
by Mr. Ignacio Jané, or his suggestion concerning that it's not necessary to ratify here at the an extraordinary General Assembly the sponsor. He has an opinion, but I don't know if everyone agrees with that, because there are many people that with this type of contract, well, are very sensitive. It represents the club, the game jersey represents the club, and in Article 20.9 of the members' trustees says that if there are contracts that include advertising on the official kit or uniforms of the players, or contracts for the name of the Palau or the stadium, need to be presented to the General Assembly. So we have to do what is in the Articles of Association. So in any case, we believe that the Assembly is a control system in the management of the Board of Directors. The Board of Directors and all those contracts that have special relevance for the organization, both, well, the suggestion is that we should remove the 20.9, this point 20.9 from the Articles of Association. I must say that when it can be ratified or not ratified, so we should not take for granted that all of the contracts that we agree to with a company before they are ratified by the General Assembly will be ratified. When we bring these things to the General Assembly, it's because we believe that they are for the good of the club, and usually, I mean, the normal thing is for them to be ratified, but if this Assembly does not ratify this contract, then we will not be able to ratify it. So we understand that we have to do what is in the Articles of Association, and this was agreed on. We have to maintain this position for this process of the ratification of the sponsorship that would include the game jersey. So we believe that, thank you very much for your comment, which we believe is very useful.
Anem a passar, doncs, al que serà
Let us move on then to the vote
relativa a aquest punt de l'ordre del
concerning
dia,
this
que
point
és
of
ratificar
our
l'acord de patrocini
agenda,
amb Rakuten.
which is to ratify the agreement of sponsorship with Rakuten. You are the second assembly. Some of you didn't attend to the first, but you are familiar with this. You have to take these cards that you have in the envelope, and those that are in favor of approval have to raise yes, those that are against no, and white, blank for blank vote. So those that agree in ratifying the agreement of sponsorship with Rakuten, please raise your yes card and keep your hand up until we ask you to put them down, because we have counted. Thank you.
Moment, doncs, de votar aquest primer punt de l'ordre del dia, ratificar, si s'escau, l'acord de patrocini amb Rakuten. Aquesta companyia...
He d'informar que en aquests moments...
At this moment, we have 408 delegates are registered here with the right to vote.
Continua, doncs, aquesta votació. Moment per les paperetes afirmatives a ratificar aquest acord de patrocini amb Rakuten com a nou patrocinador principal global. Un acord que es va presentar el passat 16 de novembre a l'Auditori 1899. Aquesta companyia japonesa que apareixerà, si avui es ratifica aquest acord de patrocini, com així sembla, a la part frontal de la samarreta.
Thank you very much. Those that do not agree with the ratification of the agreement, the sponsorship agreement with Rakuten, please raise your red cards.
una de les companyies, afirmava el vicepresident Manel Arroyo, Rakuten, de les més innovadores, així ho reconeix la revista Forbes, un acord pel qual el club rebrà 55 milions d'euros durant 4 anys. Cada any, cadascun dels 4 anys, rebrà 55 milions d'euros, més un bonus de 1,5 milió per la Lliga i 5 milions si guanya la Champions.
Aixequin la papereta blanca d'abstenció.
There's the abstention card, please, which is blank, and it's colored white. Please raise that if you abstain.
Moltes gràcies.
Thank you very much. We will now count the votes, and when we have finished, we will tell you the final result of this vote.
Doncs esperant els resultats d'aquest primer punt de l'ordre del dia, la ratificació, si s'escau, de l'acord de patrocini amb Rakuten, explicava el secretari d'aquesta assemblea, el secretari de la Junta Directiva,
Aprofito aquest moment
que a la sala hi havia
per dir-ho d'alguna manera,
408 compromissaris.
Let me remind you that Article 29.6 of the Articles of Association say that 3 delegates should come to the table to sign the minutes with the notary Republic, Mr. Gerardo Conesa, that's to my left. We would ask 3 to come forward to sign.
Ja puc informar el resultat d'aquesta primera votació de l'ordre del dia. Vots a favor,
votes in favor, 377. Votes against, 4.
Vots en blanc, 5.
5 abstentions. This means that I officially declare the approval or the ratification of the sponsorship agreement with Rakuten for the next 4 years. Thank you very much.
Per tant, aprovació d'aquest primer punt de l'ordre del dia amb un 98% dels socis que són en aquests moments a l'Assemblea de Compromissaris que han ratificat aquesta decisió.
I aprovar, si s'escau, l'acord amb Mission Hills, grup del projecte a Haiku a la Xina. Per informar d'aquest punt, demano la intervenció del director executiu del club, el senyor Òscar Grau, perquè faci la corresponent presentació als assistents. Gràcies.
Bé, bona tarda a tothom. Com molt bé vostès saben, el pla estratègic defineix molt bé quina és la missió del club fins a l'any 21, en el que volem ser la institució esportiva més admirada, més estimada i global. Amb aquest procés de globalització que pretenem tenir més notorietat, tenir més presència i generar més ingrés. Per aconseguir-ho tenim diverses eines, però bàsicament amb implementació en el territori en tenim 3. Les penyes, 114 fora del país, la fundació, que malgrat totes les seves activitats estem presents a 49 països, i totes les activitats de les escoles, que en l'actualitat en tenim 25 arreu del món. Fa mesos que moltes persones del club de diversos departaments i a l'oficina de Hong Kong estan treballant en aquest projecte i m'agradaria públicament agrair tota la seva implicació, tot el treball en equip que s'ha realitzat. Per mi és un honor. Vaig iniciar aquest projecte com a director de l'escola i avui és un honor i un privilegi poder presentar-los a tots vostès aquest projecte. Bàsicament, en la meva presentació m'agradaria definir-los on volem desenvolupar aquest projecte, amb qui, què, explicar què és el projecte, com ho volem fer, com ho volem implementar, quan, parlar de calendaris, de fites, i acabar per explicar quins són els beneficis que ja anunciava el nostre president. En el món tenim dos mercats estratègics, els Estats Units i la Xina, la seva població, el
because
seu mercat
of their
potencial,
population and their
la seva
potential
economia.
market, their
Tots som
economy.
conscients de la
We're
Xina,
all
la
aware
població,
that
1.350
in
milions de
China
xinos,
there are
però el més important,
1,630 million
l'estratègia del
people.
govern vol promocionar l'esport del futbol arreu, vol
We
convertir-se en
want
una
to
superpotència.
sponsor football all
De
over the
fet,
world.
les competències de la promoció del
And,
futbol han estat traspassades al
Now
Ministeri
China wants to be a
d'Educació. I això
big
fa que el futbol
superpower in
sigui
football.
assignatura
For them
obligatòria
now, football
a les
is
escoles.
compulsory at
Hi ha aquesta
schools.
previsió que veuen vostès
And
aquí.
this focus that you see on screen is right. For 2050, they want to have
20.900
50 million
d'entrenament. Són
people
xifres realment que no estem
playing
acostumats, però que
football.
demostren el potencial que hi ha en aquest
20,000
país. 70.000 nous
coaches,
centres, nous
70,000
camps
new
de futbol.
centers.
Això que significa
New
aquest
heads of
ràtid de
football. What does this
10.000
mean? That they're going to go from
jugant per camp
10,000
de futbol.
children.
I l'objectiu del
They're
govern
gonna
també
have
és ser dels
10,000
països més
children
competitius a
per,
nivells de futbol i de fet
football
anhelen
stadium. They want
presentar-se
to be
com a
one of the
candidats
most competitive
i albergar en un
football
futur un
countries in
proper
the world.
campionat del
They
món
would like to host a world championship in the not too
On
distant
volem
future.
desenvolupar el projecte?
Now, where do we want to develop our
Doncs aquesta
project?
illa de Hainan, que
In
està
this
a
island,
una hora de Hong
Hainan,
Kong,
1 year away,
amb una
1
superfície que
hour
té de
away
35.000
from
metres
Hong Kong,
quadrats, una població de 9
35,000
milions.
square meters,
Això
9
demostra una mica,
million.
fent uns comparatius, més gran que Bèlgica
It is
i
bigger
amb
than
unes
Belgium
quantitats molt
and,
similars a
with,
Catalunya, com vostès
more or
saben,
less the
32.000 quilòmetres
same
quadrats, 7 milions i mig de població.
number of
Més
people
que res
as in
perquè tinguem
Catalonia, just to
magnitud
give
de
you
la immensitat
an
del país.
idea of how
Aquí
huge
es veu aquest
the
punt, aquesta
country
illa,
is.
però la
You
gran
can see
dimensió i
that
el gran
dot is
potencial que
the
té.
island, but
És
you can
l'única
see that
illa
it's not
tropical
small.
en els
It is the only
xinesos
tropical
es poden
island
desplaçar sense necessitat
to
d'avisar.
which Chinese
I un
people
tema
can
molt
travel
important és
without
que
a visa. And something
pel tema
important is
idiomàtic
that because of language
tenen
reasons,
facilitat, perquè sabem que
it
en altres
is
països
easier for them to
avui en
travel
dia
there because you know that
la cultura xinesa
traveling
tenen
abroad for
dificultats en
Chinese
parlar
people,
altres
but
idiomes
it is hard
i
for them
l'illa
to
de
speak
Hainan
other
els suposa
languages.
aquesta
So
facilitat.
Hainan gives them
Quines
this
característiques principals
ease.
destacaria jo també
What
d'aquesta
are the main
illa?
characteristics of the
Una gran
island? I
sostenibilitat
would say
ambiental i zona no
an
industrialitzada.
important
Tots som
environmental
conscients d'altres grans ciutats metròpolis a Xina,
sustainability.
Beijing, Shanghai,
It is
la contaminació atmosfèrica que hi ha
not,
i que potser no
highly
són
polluted. If you
les
think of
millors
Beijing,
situacions
Shanghai,
per fer
there is
pràctica
a
esportiva
high degree
i en
of
aquesta
pollution.
illa
It is
fa que
not
es
a good
donin
place
aquestes
to do
situacions
sports. In this
i
island,
que
that is
permet
not
doncs,
the
que
case.
sigui
We have an
una
ideal
destinació preferent al món de l'esport
for
i també de
sports.
reconeguda destinació
And
turística
it is also a
doncs,
great
pels xinesos.
tourist destination for Chinese people.
Els volia mostrar aquesta
I
gràfica,
wanted to show you this
que realment quan
diagram.
la vam treballar amb tot l'equip vam
When we were working on
comprovar el
it, the
potencial
team,
que té
we
doncs, aquesta illa. Partim
realized
del
the huge
2005,
potential of
15
the
milions de
island from
turistes,
2005,
i al
15
passat
million
2015
tourists. In
veuen vostès aquí
2015, you can see
53
here,
milions amb una projecció
53
d'arribar
million.
als 80 milions.
The
Això són unes
projection
xifres
is 80
espectaculars.
million.
Més espectaculars
Huge,
quan
huge
comparem amb
figures.
Tailàndia.
Even more so,
Tailàndia,
we
que
compare
tots
it
som
to
conscients
Thailand.
d'un dels
We all
països,
know that
un destí
Thailand
turístic
is
a
a
Àsia,
great,
i que veiem
tourist
la xifra
destination in
evolutiva, que per
Asia.
exemple aquest any
Well,
està
look at the
pràcticament
evolution.
25,
This year they are at
24
about
milions per
24
sota de la illa de
million
Hainan. Són
above,
xifres importants
Hainan.
que demostren doncs, el gran
This means
potencial
the
doncs, que hi ha
huge
a la
potential
illa.
that the island has.
Amb qui volem fer i compartir aquest projecte? Doncs amb el
Now, who
Mission
do we want
Hills
to
Group.
share the project
El
with?
fundador va
With
ser
Mission
el
Hills
doctor
Group.
David Chu, que ens va deixar
Founded by Dr.
el
David Chu,
2011,
who left
i
us
actualment
in
els seus dos fills,
2011,
el
and
doctor
his
Ken
two
Chu és
children, Dr. Ken
l'actual
Chu,
president,
current
i el Daniel
president,
Chu, l'altre
and
fill, és el
Daniel Chu,
vicepresident. És
who is
una
the
empresa
vice
fundada
president.
el
It's a company founded
1992,
in
i veiem que hi ha moltes
1992.
fundacions olímpiques, perquè
You can see that
aquí
there are
tenim
many
molts records de
Olympic
Barcelona 92,
references for
però
us.
és una
92
família
was
que
a
va
kid, yeah.
compartir
And
molt
it is a family
l'èxit de la candidatura
that
dels Jocs
really
Olímpics de
shared
Beijing l'any
the
2008, tant en
success
el
of the
projecte de
candidacy
candidatura
of Beijing
com a
2008,
l'organització dels
both the
Jocs.
candidacy and the
Posseixen
organization of
120
the
quilòmetres
games.
quadrats de terrenys
They
a la
own
Xina, entre l'illa de
120 square
Haikou
kilometers
i
in China
Shenzhen, que
between
està també al
Haikou
sud
and
de la Xina.
Zhejiang, which is also south of China.
I el més important, encara
And the
tenen
main
72
thing,
quilòmetres
they still
quadrats
have
per
72 square
desenvolupar.
kilometers to be
Les seves
developed.
instal·lacions reben 5,6
Their
milions de
facilities
visites
receive
anuals entre Haikou
5.6
i
million
Shenzhen.
visitors a
I
year.
com dèiem,
between
és una
Haikou
empresa
and
líder
Shenzhen, and
en el
as
sector
we
de
were saying, they are
l'esport i de
leaders
l'oci.
in sports
S'ha
and
convertit, i és un tema molt important en
This
el
is
nostre projecte,
important for
en
our
una de les
project.
seus
They've become
permanents de la
one of
Federació
the
Xinesa
permanent,
de Futbol. En
hosts
quant a números
of the
econòmics, el grup
Chinese,
Mission Hills ha invertit quasi
Football
10.000
Federation,
milions de
and they have
dòlars
invested
en el sector de
$10,000
l'oci i de
in
l'esport.
leisure culture and sports.
En aquesta gràfica podem veure,
You can see here
podríem dir, les 6 grans línies de negoci que té aquest grup. Són líders mundials en instal·lacions de golf, tenen 22 camps de golf.
They have 22
Només
golf
a
camps.
Hainan i a Shenzhen.
Just in Hainan and
Gestionen
Shenzhen.
la primera acadèmia de tennis
They
Boris Becker.
managed the first Boris Becker
Tenen
Tennis
un dels
Academy.
parcs aquàtics més
They
grans de
have
la Xina,
one
Wet
of
n
the
Wild.
biggest,
Com comentàvem, alberga també una de les seus permanents de la selecció xinesa de futbol.
aquatic facilities
Gestiona
in
el
China.
resort i l'espai mineral
They
més gran que hi ha al món.
Have
I
the
per últim
biggest
també
resort
tenen
in the
i
world,
gestionen
and
uns
they also
estudis
manage
cinematogràfics semblants als estudis Universal.
studios which are similar to Universal
Bé, però
Studios.
després de la descripció de
Now, having described
on ho volem fer, amb qui ho volem fer,
we
què
want
volem
to
fer?
carry out the project
Aquí
and
d'entrada
where.
permeteu-me
Now, what do we want
que
to
no
do?
volem fer un parc temàtic. Jo
Allow
he
me to
llegit
say
aquests
that we do
dies
not
que
want
volem
to
fer
do
un
a
parc
theme park.
temàtic.
I've
No
read
és en
somewhere that
absolut
we wanted to
aquest el
to do
concepte.
a theme park.
La
That
base,
is
l'eix
not
del
at all the
projecte
case.
és crear
The basis
una
of the
gran
project
escola.
is to
Com
create
comentava en la meva
a
introducció, tenim
big
25 escoles al
school.
món
We have 25
gestionades
football
amb un
schools all
partner.
over the
Aquí
world.
serà la primera
This
escola
would be our
gestionada
first
directament pel
football
Futbol Club
school
Barcelona.
that would be
Pensem per la
directly
dimensió del
managed
país,
by
per la seva
Barça.
ubicació,
We
pel
think that
potencial
because
que
of the
té,
size of the
el
country,
Barcelona
the place,
ha de
everything,
tenir el
Barça
100% del
would-
control de la gestió
should
d'aquesta escola.
have 100%
Ens
of the
permetrà tenir
management
7
of the
camps de
school.
futbol,
We would
que
have
realment és
7
espectacular per
football
desenvolupar el
stadiums,
projecte,
football pitches,
i tenim una
amazing,
estimació de tenir un
and
mínim de
our
1.000 nens
focus is to have at
a
least
l'escola. Tot això amb
1,000
l'afegit
children
que
in
comentava
the
abans,
school. And
està
on top of that, as I was saying
compartint
before,
espais amb la Federació
we would be
Xinesa
sharing
de
spaces
Futbol.
with the
Al següent
Chinese
plànol
Football
veurem una mica
Federation.
aquesta distribució,
You could see the
unes instal·lacions
distribution
emblemàtiques per la pràctica
These,
esportiva, hi ha un camp d'atletisme,
we
uns
have the
camps
track
aquí
and
per la
field
Federació Xinesa,
facilities.
i tot aquest
That's
espai
for the Chinese
que en
Federation,
podrem fer ús per aplicar
that
la
is
nostra
what we
metodologia,
would
implantar
have
la
for
nostra manera d'entendre
our
el futbol, la
facilities
nostra
and to
know-how,
develop
i ajudar
our
a
know-how and how we
desenvolupar,
understand
el
football
futbol
and to
a la
help
Xina.
boost football
També
in
donant
China.
altres activitats, no? Un nou
And there
concepte
would
de
be other
megastore,
activities,
on
a
la
new
gent podrà
concept of
accedir,
a
comprar
megastore where people
productes
could
del
buy
Barça, una
Barça
zona
products.
d'experiències
We have
interactives
an
amb
interactive
contingut
experience
Barça,
area
per
with
continuar
Barça
fent marca,
contents
on
to
la
develop
tecnologia
our
tindrà un
brand.
paper fonamental
And
i els
in
continguts
this
del
area,
Barça
technology would
aportaran
play a
aquesta
key
emoció
role,
que volem
and
transmetre.
the Barça contents
també
would allow
permetrà,
everybody to
doncs,
share
una zona
that
de
thrill.
restauració.
And finally, we
Aquest
would
conjunt
have a
és el que
catering
formarà
area.
doncs,
The
el
whole
projecte que volem desenvolupar.
project put
A la
together
illa
would
de
be
Hainan.
our
Aquí és una
project in
foto ja
Hainan.
real a l'estat
This is a
de
real
Centerville.
picture
És
of the Centerville.
La capital, a Haikou.
This is the
I aquest
capital in
espai
Haikou.
destinat
And
a
this is
poder
the
incloure totes
area
aquestes
that
activitats
would
i
hold
que
all
de ben
those
segur penso
activities,
que reforçaran
which
la nostra
I am
imatge.
sure would be positive
Com
for
volem
our image.
desenvolupar
Now,
doncs,
how
aquesta
do we
aliança?
want
A nivell
to
empresarial, doncs,
develop
volem
this
crear una
alliance?
societat mixta,
At corporate level,
50%
it would
de
be a
Futbol Club
joint venture,
Barcelona,
50% for Barça
del
Football
grup
Club,
Mission Hill.
50% for Mission Hill.
El Barcelona designarà el
Barça
president i el
would
director
appoint
financer,
the
i
president
Mission
and
Hills
the
designarà el director
CFO, and
general.
Mission Hill and the
Això
CEO.
suposarà una inversió pel club
This would be an
de 4
investment
milions
for
d'euros.
us of 4 million euros.
I el Barça sempre
And
ha
Barça
defensat que hem
has
de
always
defensar els mecanismes
defended
necessaris per
that
assegurar el
we
control
should
absolut de la marca.
use the
No volem que es
mechanisms
faci mal ús, i per
required
això
to
sempre
have
totes les
full
decisions
control of the
respecte a la
brand.
marca
We don't
Barça
want to
estaran
see the
sota
brand
la nostra
misused. So
tutela.
anything that affects
Com
the brand would
comentava el
be
president en
under
la seva
our
intervenció,
decision. As the
proposem una
chairman
durada
was saying, we would
d'aliança de
suggest
10 anys,
that the
prorrogables 10
partnership
anys
should
més.
last 10 years with
Des del minut u,
potential to go on
el
for
club ja
10
tindrà
further years.
beneficis.
From the very
Un
beginning,
15% de la facturació,
we
el
would
concepte
have
de royalties,
benefit,
ja s'ingressaran al compte
15%
d'explotació
of
del
the
club.
turnover would
I
be,
el 50%
which
dels
would be
beneficis
royalties,
generats del
and
projecte
50% of the benefit of the
doncs, al
project
Futbol Club
would be
Barcelona.
for us, for Barça
En tots
Football
els
Club.
escenaris, estudis de viabilitat que hem compartit i que hem
Now,
treballat amb
in
la
all these
consultoria de
scenarios we have
prestigi
worked out
Pricewaterhouse,
with
lògicament hem
Pricewaterhouse, the
treballat diversos
prestigious
escenaris,
company. We
el
have developed
pessimista,
various
l'optimista, el
scenarios,
conservador.
the conservative, optimistic, pessimistic
La
scenarios.
proposta més pessimista
The
és un
most
retorn d'inversió
pessimistic
en 4
scenario
anys,
means that we would
que
break
demostra,
even in
doncs,
4 years.
tots els beneficis que
So you can
podem tenir
imagine
del projecte.
how profitable the project
Uns
could turn
timings,
out to be.
unes
Now,
fites de calendari.
timings.
Avui estem tots aquí per presentar el
Now,
projecte
we're here presenting
i
the
esperar
project and
l'aprovació
hopefully
de
to
l'Assemblea.
approve it
Si això es produeix,
this,
doncs al gener es
extraordinary
firmaria l'acord
GM.
de la societat mixta entre el
If
Futbol
this
Club
happens,
Barcelona i el
we'd
grup
be
Mission
signing
Hill.
in January with Mission Hills.
març 2017,
In March 2017, we're talking about 2017, the calendar is quite tight. It's a bit of a challenge. In March, we'd be opening the school and the interactive and the catering area, the restaurant area. The president of the country, the president of China, would be there. There is a possibility, which would mean we would definitely be in the media. And in July, we'd have our first campus. You know that the school has 3 main lines. The campus, which is after school breaks out, we have weekly activities, and in September we'd have school activity with extracurricular activities.
Una freqüència d'entrenament de 2-3 dies a la setmana,
with 2 or 3 days training a week plus friendly matches over the weekend. So this is the timing we've prepared. Just to finish, I'd like to summarize the benefit we expect to derive from the project. First of all, we've already said this is a unique opportunity to increase our income. At the end of the day, we want to have a competitive, strong team with the best players, and we need to find the resources to keep those players. Then we have brand. We want to strengthen our brand. We have to be better recognized. We want to have more followers. We want to have more people following us in associated states, and this is important for this positioning. Then, obviously, sharing spaces and cooperating with the Chinese Federation, we would also have the recognition of the Chinese government, which would mean perhaps a new boost from sponsors. We believe that in the Chinese economy, there are important companies who, when they find out what they're doing for Chinese football, could perhaps express an interest in sponsor the club, and that would be profitable for us. We would also like to be leaders in creating comprehensive experiences. It's not just the school, there are also interactive experiences, and also we'll be creating new opportunities. We could mention the Universitas project, where we've already reached an agreement with the University of Beijing to carry out university activities jointly and to work on sports management models. Right, so that was my presentation, and I remain at your disposal for any doubts or queries you may have. Thank you.
Moltes gràcies al senyor Òscar Grau.
Mr. Òscar Grau.
A les intervencions.
We're now going to go on to the interventions from the floor. May I remind you that you have to give us your number and member number. Please be as brief as you can, and we shall gather all the questions and then answer. Thank you.
Sí, endavant. Sí. Bona tarda. Em dic Ajo Lluc Perales.
Good afternoon. My name is Ajo Lluc. Number is 1652.
He començat pensant...
Everything
És una mica el cuento de la
you're
lechera.
saying, is it a bit of, just dreaming big with empty dreams?
Una personalitat pròpia i
Because
que no
we're
depenem
talking
d'una federació
like
espanyola.
we are our own masters and we don't depend on anybody. Do we have the permission of the Spanish Federation to do all that?
Perquè passarà que si això és una cosa important,
If
alguna pedregada es fotrà de sobre.
we don't,
Això
this
ho
could
veig a
all
venir.
end up like
Si
pie in the
fracassem,
sky.
s'ho passaran pipa.
I mean, if this
Però si no,
succeeds, we might be in
senyors,
trouble. If we
preparin-se,
fail, they'd
perquè
love
això
it. They'd
ens ho
love
fotran per
it.
tot arreu, Moltes
And
gràcies.
we'd never hear the end of it. Thank you.
Intervenció.
Thank you. Second question?
Hola, bona tarda.
Good afternoon.
Maria Dolors
My name is
Manuel,
Maria
soc
Dolors
el número
Manuel.
de soci.
I'm member number
11.000,
11.
no, perdó, 114.590. M'agradaria fer-los arribar que jo que he estat a la Xina, potser també
Now,
molts de vostès,
I've traveled to China, I
9
suppose, like
milions
many of you.
d'habitants és el que allà és
9
una
million
ciutat.
inhabitants,
És a
that's
dir,
just
tot el
one
nostre país
city. I
és
mean,
el que hi
our
ha
whole
allà una sola
country,
ciutat.
that
Se'ns
there, that
menjaran
would be just a city,
a
a town.
patates.
They're going to eat
Si
us up
nosaltres no
for
portem un bon
breakfast.
projecte, un bon
If we
projecte
don't
que
go
vol dir
there with a
d'ensenyament,
good
perquè
project, a
ells
good
justament
teaching
alguna
project,
de les coses
because
en les que fallen
what
és amb els drets
they're not very good
humans.
at is
Hi ha
human
moltes,
rights.
There are many weaknesses in how they treat people in their country. So I think that the school would be great, but we don't want to just reach the elites, because the elites is where the money is. Now, a communist country has been communist for years and years. How can it be the country with the highest number of millionaires? Where does all that money come from, I wonder? So if we want to reach a country like China, what we need to export is our quality of life and our way of thinking. That's how I would like to join the project. Now, if that is not a well-thought-through, balanced project, I believe that we, as Barcelona Football Club, should stay at home. That's all. Thank you. Thank you. Next.
Josep Maria
Vilomar i Lamarca, number 3971.
A mi el projecte m'agrada molt.
I like the project because I like Barça and I like Barça values, and I like the values of the Mediterranean and what we have here in the Mediterranean in Europe. I think we have the duty of taking these values abroad. Now, that is more or less the area where the Portuguese got to, where the relationships with China and the Iberian Peninsula started out. So there is a very interesting link there already. I'd like to also remind you all that that traditional Chinese route, our host, our facilities are on Via Augusta, and Coiblanc is on Via Augusta. So there is a certain similarity of contacts between the southern China route and the route we are on the Mediterranean that links this end of the Mediterranean with the Atlantic. So I think we could give a boost to these cultural relationships and share with China our European democratic values. And I think that would be a very important role to play. I love the project because of that, because I think that Barça, with its sports values, its schools, we have certain values that are missing elsewhere. And that's what I wanted to say. Now, the fact that we are here to vote on things democratically, this is obvious. I mean, in other clubs, they are just purely an economic corporation. We are democratic, and that's why I love the project. Thank you. Thank you. Next, please.
Sí, hola, soc el Daniel de l'Amor.
I'm Daniel de l'Amor, 95495. My query is about the training and talent hunting activity. You've talked to us about money, the economic feasibility of the agreement, and I think it's clear that it's wonderful, it's great, and it's going to help us be better positioned in the Chinese market. But it's not clear to me what China will get out of it from a training point of view. What's Barça going to contribute to those kids who are going to learn football at that Barça school? And to me, it's not clear either what Barça is going to get out of it from the point of view of talent hunting. Are we expecting to find a new Pell in that school? How is Barça going to guarantee that what they're working on in that project could possibly one day make it to the top team? Thank you. We'll now give the floor here on the left. My name is Francesc Lloreta, number 83572.
La meva pregunta
My question, well, for me, I like the project. It's not that I dislike it. I think it's good, to invest in China, all of that's great. But I'd like to know what's the business model. What is the expected income? This 5 million euro investment is going to break even in 4 years. How are we going to have profit in the first year? I'd like to have a bit more detail on the business model. That's all. Thank you. Thank you. On the right.
Bona tarda. El meu nom és
Good afternoon. Joan Manuel Monroy,
43735. Les meves preguntes són les següents.
I have a couple of questions.
Primer, quan a aquesta empresa mixta,
this joint venture, what would it be called? Would it have Barça in it somehow? I suppose it would be Barça, Mission Hill. I mean, how visible would Barça be in the name of that joint venture? Same thing for the school. That would be 100% run by the club. The coaches, the managers, the technical managers in general, would they be from here, or would they be trained there, or would we train them over there? And finally, perhaps one of the benefits we could derive from the project in the long run would be perhaps good players. I imagine there would be kids of all ages, and there could be, all the kids with professional contracts behind them. If this is a joint venture, the ownership of those kids would also be 50% for Barça? Thank you. Thank you. We have two more questions on the left. Ricardo Fernandez, 40,438. I'd like to know, in a joint venture, 50-50, what I'm a bit concerned about is that might damage our name, our colors, our values. When you have a 50-50 joint venture, I'd like to hear, please, what are the defense mechanisms the club has not to hurt our clubs or our name, our values in a country which, as we know, is a communist country, without losing sight of the fact that we're talking about a 10-year relationship. So I would not like to see our name or our values damaged in a 50-50 joint venture. Thank you. Thank you. On the right.
Hola, bona tarda.
Good afternoon.
Joan Rovira, soci número 46.
Number 46.
Referent a tot el que s'ha anat parlant,
about everything that has been said, I fully agree with the last speaker. I think we should bear that in mind. So perhaps it would be a good idea for the delegates to appoint a small committee to give a follow-up on the development of this whole project.
No informació, sinó valor del que s'estigui fent, però que estigui d'acord amb tots els socis.
To just, pass things on and find the agreement of all the members. I mean, this is very, very complicated at state level. They're just saying this is a communist country. And another country, us, and I'm not sure what we are, but never mind. I think it would be a good thing to appoint a committee which every so often could pass on the information to us so that we don't have to wait for a whole year to be informed. Thank you. Thank you. One last question on the left.
Bona tarda, perdó.
Good afternoon.
Antoni Guil, soci 78.828. Permeti'm que parli en nom de la Confederació Mundial de Penyes per expressar-li exactament el que comentava el senyor Grau. Nosaltres tenim 114 penyes arreu del món i per nosaltres projectes com aquest passen, el nostre projecte de futur com a moviment de penyes passa per la consolidació del moviment tant a Catalunya com a la resta de l'Estat, però també per la projecció internacional del nostre moviment.
And to have international consolidation of the name. So all these gestures, all these efforts from Barça all over the world, and in particular this project is quite amazing, and I think it deserves our support. I think this consolidates our project, and it leaves us in a good position to keep developing the followers clubs. And this would also mean that we would take our values to those countries where we are and where we will be in the future. I definitely share the concern of other members, and I think those concerns should be expressed within the extraordinary general meeting, because this is a sizable project. But on behalf of the Followers Association, I'd like to express that all these worldwide initiatives consolidate our efforts and those of Barça. And what we want to have at the end of the day is the best football club in the world, from the point of view of sports, but also from the point of view of the social project. And this is a great help. So from us, this is a good project. It is a project that definitely deserves follow-up, a thorough follow-up, to make sure we derive full benefit from it, but definitely a project that will help us with our international projection to become the best football club in the world, which is what we are. Thank you. Thank you. So let's put it to the vote, the second point. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. No, we have to answer. Of course, sorry, we have to answer before we vote. I give the floor to the President for answers. First of all, if you don't mind, I'd like to say that many of the answers will come from our executive committee and others from other directors, but I think, Oscar, the first one is for you. Yes, the school model is a model which is highly consolidated. We have 25 schools all over the world, 150 football pitches in over 100 countries, and we always guarantee, obviously, the approval of the Spanish Federation and the National Federation. We've already spoken to the Chinese Federation, and they are delighted to have Barça developing a school there locally. And the Spanish Federation is informed. There are other clubs which are carrying out this model. So with that, I would answer Mr. Ángel Lluc Perales. Then, for Maria Dolors. Now, what's important is that Barça wants to pass on our know-how, the way we understand football, and just as we do that here and in all our schools, our values are important. Our values for the schools and for the club: humility, effort, respect, teamwork and ambition. Those are Barça values, and those are the values we want to export all over the world. And we want people to own them as theirs. This is one of the tasks we would like to implement in Hainan, in China. For Josep Vilamara, same thing about values, so I believe the question has been answered. If that is not the case, please let us know at the end. President, I'll keep going. If you want to add anything, feel free. No, I mean, at the end of the day, what you're saying is right. History will prove us right. Today, we may have doubts, but well, we are working on it, and perhaps we need to keep an eye on things, but we're on the right path. For the fourth question from Mr. Daniel de la Mor, you're asking about how they might benefit in China. Well, for Barça, with this school and with our schools all over the world, we have 25 schools and growing. This is a concept, it's a project that Barça has been developing for over 10 years, and it works. And what we want to convey is our football all over the world, and we want children from 6 to 12 or 6 to 14 to learn as an extracurricular activity to play football, Many of them afterwards will be sort of hunted by local clubs who are delighted to have Barca provide this service in their countries. And we have that in China, where we already have a school. This would be our second school in China, wouldn't it, Oscar? Right, we already have one. So those kids, we just want to teach them football values, and if there is a child who has huge talent, obviously we'll keep an eye on him, but let's not forget that these Chinese kids, until they are 18, they cannot come to us, they cannot come to the Masia because of the FIFA rules that we're all aware of. I mean, it would be great to have those changed in the future, but well, we would keep an eye on them after they leave the school and they join a local club. Fifth question, Oscar, could you? Yes, for Mr. Francesc Lloreta. About the business model. I have already, well, we've developed a business plan together with Pricewaterhouse with the different scenarios, the conservative, pessimistic, optimistic, depending on the number of visitors, amount spent, overheads, employees, facilities, whatever. And all of this means, with the most conservative scenario, income for Barcelona of 13 million, which could be 120 million, depending on the number of children, number of visitors, and depending on the number of visitors to Hainan keeps growing as it has been growing over the last few years. About the name of the Chinese company, I must say that it hasn't been decided yet. There are several possibilities which are being considered: Barca Experience, Barca World, but this is still being developed. We want to have your approval first, and if we have it, then the team will work on the brand.
No canvi, sisplau, perquè el senyor Monroy feia més preguntes. Parlava dels tècnics.
No, but he was also talking about the technicians. They would be local to start with, but we would also be training people in China. So we would have the technical team from here, but we would also train those more members of the technical team in China, which would be good for everybody. Now, for players, the rights are ours and Mission Hill's. As we said, the school is 12 to 14-year-old kids. At the end of the day, those kids will be signed by a local football club. We are a school, not a club. So we will not have any rights on those children, neither us nor Mission Hills. We will only be a school, not a club. Going back to the technical team, all our schools, the 25 schools we have, they're always led by one of our coaches from Barcelona Football Club. That's the only way to develop our system, to take our methodology, our know-how wherever we go. And that's the only way to train local coaches. Obviously, here in Hainan, the goal would be to take more people from Barcelona. It's an ambitious project, and we want to keep a close eye on it. So we'd end up with a combination of local Barca technical team members and people from Hainan who would be trained by us. Now, for Ricard Fernandez, who expressed a concern about the Barca brand being damaged with 50% ownership, we're all aware of that. In fact, we want to protect our name. That's why when I presented the project, something I mentioned was that we're establishing the right mechanisms to guarantee full control of the brand. Anything to do with the brand will be decided by Barcelona Football Club. That has been clear from the word go. on that, I would like to clarify any doubt that there might be about it. For Mr. Joan Rovira, he was asking, or he was suggesting, to set up a committee for the following of the project by the delegates. Well, the follow-up will be done by the board of directors. This joint venture will have its own board of directors with members that will come from Barça and who will travel, I don't know, once a month or once every 6 weeks for meetings. We, as board of directors, will be doing a regular follow-up of what's happening, so we'll be definitely informed so that Barça can not suffer as a brand. We must also know that the Economic Commission of the club will be providing follow-up for the project and for the joint venture, and obviously at any AGM, you will be, or delegates meeting, you will be informed. Just as we do with senators. Mr. Rovira is one of our senators. We have 1 or 2 senators meetings a year, and you will be duly informed at those meetings. So we have all the right mechanisms to have peace of mind, and that the name of our club is not going to suffer. So I don't think we need a delegates committee, because there will be enough of us traveling, I can assure you. But you will be duly informed. You will be kept up to speed. And the last question was from Mr. Anthony Gill. He was saying that he celebrates that Barça is opening up to the world. It is the will of the board to create an international club.
Descobreix l'univers Barça Kids. Juga i aprèn amb les diferents activitats i jocs. Construeix els teus propis invents. Cuina amb la família i tasta les nostres receptes. Descobreix fantàstiques històries i combat els monstres. Passa una bona estona i posa a prova el teu enginy. Demostra tot el que saps del Barça i que qui té valors guanya. Descarrega l'app i entra a l'univers Barça Kids.
to explain everything that has happened and that the delegates here will understand the situation that we have reached since that day in October of 2009 when it was approved and where we feel now. This presentation, it's going to take about 20 minutes. We'll begin explaining what the responsibility action is. We understand that people talk about the responsibility action, but there may not be a very clear understanding of what exactly it is. And so we have to go back to the 80s for this. In the 80s, at the end of the 80s, here in the Spanish state, the first and second degree teams in football were in a situation of economic failure. They were going bankrupt. All of the clubs were getting deeper and deeper into debt. After the World Cup of '82, the clubs wanted to be competitive, and there was lots of pressure from the media, from the fans, and they began to invest money, and almost all of the teams in first and second division found themselves in this very precarious situation. This forced the government to intervene because they had to find a solution in Spanish football, and that is when they promoted what was called the sports law from 1990. The sports law of 1990 made it mandatory for all of these clubs to become enterprises, to become sports enterprises, to change the social status and the social makeup. There were two reasons for this. The first was to try to clean up the accounts of the clubs and to make them economically viable. Why is this? Well, once they became company, they would put out shares that club members or third parties could purchase, and therefore there was a value to those shares, and this money that was gained from selling shares was put into the treasury of the company, and it became an asset. And the idea then was to turn the clubs into a company in order to clean up the situation. It also meant that the teams had to have managers in a situation that would control their actions, because there's a series of criteria and instruments that allow for a greater control of the management carried out by the administrators. In the past, there was a very lax law in the area of sports, and the administrators, they were under another law and another criteria. So this was the second objective. However, what happened was at that same time, this law created the possibility that those clubs that in the previous 4 years had had positive results, those clubs could, if they wanted to, remain with the structure they had and not become sports companies, and they could continue being a social club or a not-for-profit organization. There were 4 clubs that met this criteria because they didn't have losses and that wanted to continue to remain. That was Football Club Barcelona, Real Madrid, Osasuna, and Athletic de Bilbao. However, the law stated if you want to be sports clubs and not be under the same regimen as the sports companies, you can do so, but there is one condition which was compulsory. And that compulsory condition was that the members of the governing boards or the board of directors that manage a club, when they became members of the boards of directors, during the period that they were presidents, they were members of they were directors, they could not spend more at the end of their term than had come in. So there had to be a control. Sometimes they could lose, sometimes they could earn, but the sustainability of the future always depended on the accounts being equal at the end of the term. And the law would penalize those boards of directors that had spent more than had come in. At the end of that management period, if there were losses, the law stated, and this is something that was imposed very rigorously, that these directors, these members of the board of directors, had to replace the money that had been lost out of their own possessions. So it was not only this amount that they had lost, but also so that it would be very clear, the law said that before beginning their term, they had to deposit a guarantee, a bank guarantee to the Professional Football League for an amount of 15% of the team's budget to guarantee that eventual need to return money that had been lost. And that was what the law of sports said. This is our responsibility, the responsibility of the board. We cannot spend more than comes in, and if we do, then we have to pay that difference, and we had to provide a bank guarantee before. This is what comes from the sports law. Let's see if we can get the screen up here. It says the law of sport, the seventh article, and you can see here, so what I'm saying is what's included in the rules. It says the clubs that in the last 4 years have obtained a positive outcome will be able to maintain their condition of social club, but it established among other conditions the following. The members of the boards of directors of these clubs will be personally responsible for the negative economic results that are generated during their terms, the terms of their management. So it says they will be responsible jointly. This means each one has to pay their part. It's divided among the number of board of directors. Based on the results of their management throughout that period, and this will take into account the exception, the audits. There are no exceptions. And it will begin on the 1st of July of every year until the 30th of June of the following year. And it says before beginning each period, they will have to deposit to a bank guarantee to the league that will guarantee that responsibility, the future responsibility, if there is any, and that will reach 15% of that budget. That is the nature of the responsibility of the members of the board of directors. That is, when we join a board of directors, that is the responsibility that we take on. But second part, why in 2010 was the action of responsibility presented? In 2010 there were elections and the previous board of directors finished. They left on the 30th of June and they handed over to the new board of directors the yearly accounts. And these yearly accounts that were handed over on the 30th of June 2010 had a positive result of 11 million euros approximately. These yearly accounts obviously have to be audited and validated all of the accounting annotations of those yearly figures, and the Board of Directors hand over to Deloitte, which is the official auditor of the club for the previous 5 years. They passed them on to Deloitte, and the auditors were given the figures to be approved. On the 21st of July, the 21st of July of 2010, the auditor returned the accounts to the club and said, there's some things that are not clear. There were 3 exceptions and 3 things that were unclear. What does that mean, 3 uncertainties and 4 exceptions? It meant that there were 4 things that they considered were improperly counted, and other points that required a provision because there was a debt that came from behind during the period. And let me just give you a quick exercise. For example, the 4 exceptions was that there were 12 million from MediaPro as an income that had to do with the payment that was part of the income for the seasons 10, 11, 11, 12, and 12, 13. It was, they were television rights for the future, so in accounting this is not a profit that could be attributed to that moment, but rather only when that money actually came in, so they could not include that 12 million because this was money that had to do with the coming seasons. Or the Baena case. The Baena case was a lawsuit, 3.5 million. They said that they would get 3.7 million, and the accountant said, yes, but this is a lawsuit that hasn't been won, and even if you win, you probably are going to have this 3.6 million as a benefit. The same was true with the sale of Henri. There was 9 million that was to be included in a sale of some land in Central Andes that now belong to sports facilities, training facilities, and this cannot, well, the accountants told us, the auditors told us that this could not be seen as something current because it was a future sale, so these 4 exceptions well, the auditor asked for that to be changed, and there was an uncertainty concerning a 12 million credit for MediaPro, and MediaPro was going bankrupt, and it was necessary for there to be an annotation of 3.6 million in case they never paid. This was done and was annotated, but there was a lawsuit that came to us from Soficable for 47 million euros we had lost initially, but in the yearly accounts that was not seen as a possible future debt of 47 million, and the auditor said that that had to be included because it was possible that this amount would be needed to be paid. And finally, the other uncertainty was the money paid for the land. That I mentioned before was 16-17 million, but the government had not approved the zoning change, and therefore they had lost value. So these corrections that were introduced were not done by initiative, but rather it was initiative of the auditors that asked for these exceptions to be made.
Doncs bé, una vegada es fan les correccions pertinents,
once the corrections were done,
es reformulen les comptes i resulta ser
the accounts were reformulated, and it turns out that the final result
el resultat final d'aquesta comptabilitat, dels comptes anuals,
the accounting of the yearly accounts from 2010
donaven un resultat
gave
negatiu
a negative result
de 79
79.6 million euros. If we added up the positive results of the negative results of the period of the previous term of the directors, it meant that during that period of their management, there was a negative result of 47,330,000. And according to the law of sports, it led us to a situation which was very complicated to manage, but that had to be managed by the incoming board of directors. And that is that previously there had been a loss of over 47 million euros. So what occurred in this situation? Well, we've seen what the actual responsibility is, but the sports law says who can present this, who has to decide if this should be the result of an actual responsibility. If from the accounting point of view there's losses of 47 million, then well, who has to decide this? Who has to decide what occurs? Well, the sports law says that in these cases, the responsibility action can be exercised by the club by the agreement of the assembly, that is just a simple majority, and members that represent 5%. So the board of directors, finding this loss of 47 million, what they needed to do was to present this to the assembly so that the assembly would decide if the action of the responsibility action would be presented or not. And this is a very sensitive, very delicate situation, because sometimes there are issues that have to do with accounting, but it's a topic that's difficult to manage, but it had to be done this way. So, it was brought to the general meeting, to the assembly, and the result of the vote on the 18th of October 2010, there were two important results. First of all, the accounts were approved, the budgets were approved. And secondly, si es presentava o no es presentava l'acció de responsabilitat, i el resultat va ser que sí, que es presentava l'acció de responsabilitat. The outcome was yes, it would be presented. Aquests acords these agreements, these two agreements, that of the yearly accounts and the agreement to take action, the action to carry out and to move forward with the responsibility action, all of the members of the board of directors considered that these agreements that had been adopted in the assembly were not correct, and que va desestimar la impugnació i va dir que protested and it was said that they had been adopted validly. So this sentence, there was an appeal, and the Circuit Court said that what was adopted in that assembly was correct. So we were forced then to go to the responsibility action. The club sent all of the information to an external office to carry out that responsibility. This leads me to the second part of my presentation. That finishes the second part, and the third part is the most complicated one. And what is it that the judge decided? What was his sentence? 2 years ago, it was 88 pages or more, but I will try to give you a summary that will be clear so that we can understand where we are and so that we can evaluate this also with greater knowledge. We would like to present to you what we have been able to do for the good of the club.
La demanda que es va presentar per part del club explicava això, que havien hagut uns
The
resultats negatius, que els
lawsuit
comptes
was
havien
that
sigut
there were
validats per l'auditor,
negative
que
results,
aquests
that the
comptes van aprovar
auditors
l'assemblea,
had approved
que
these numbers,
aquests acords de
and that
l'assemblea
had
van
been
ser
approved,
objecte d'una
and
impugnació, que van quedar definitivament i que s'havia donat un mandat d'exercir
the
l'acció.
assembly,
D'acord amb el
and that
criteri que
had been an
marcava en
appeal,
principi s'entenia,
and basically
ho hem vist abans, el
we
redactat,
saw it before
el que deia en
what
el seu
was
moment
written in that law,
la llei, o la que diu la llei del deporte.
what the law of sports
Aquesta
says.
demanda va ser presentada
And
i la
this
part
was
contrària,
presented,
entre cometes, perquè jo no puc parlar de contraris, els 200 socis que han participat, exdirectius, que són companys, però és un
we
tema
have ex-directors, board directors that were on the other side of this lawsuit, and they came forward with their allegations. They said that the action had
el temps per presentar l'acció, perquè tota aquesta demora amb el que és la resolució de les impugnacions de l'acord de l'assemblea havia passat el temps i per tant havia caducat.
Had expired, but they said that the responsibility that the members of the directors, the board of directors have required for there to be negligence, and that was a very interesting legal debate, and it said that the directors of the board were not just the ones, but all of those that had participated in the entire period. They said that Football Club Barcelona should have accepted the accounts of 11 million of profit that they presented, and the new board of directors had no need to have recalculated and re-evaluated. So there was a very long list of reasons why they considered that this responsibility action should not prosper, and they asked for absolution. And what does the ruling say? What does the ruling say?
Anirem per parts. La sentència admet que la responsabilitat és objectiva i refusa els motius d'oposició dels demandants. La responsabilitat, si els números surten negatius, s'ha de respondre.
If the numbers are negative, you have to respond, not add another explanation saying that there was a certain behavior that justifies this. It's objective. It also refused the expiry, and it says that this was valid and still timely. And they said that 63.8 million euros of losses in the 2002-2003 season could be attributed to those to the plaintiffs, to the defendants, and that there needed to be an accounting technique, which is the net real approach, and not consider that those losses were accounting. It also says that it isn't necessary. Those that are responsible are the ones that have finished their term, because when some people leave and others come in their place, well, the ones that come in new take on the responsibility of those that have left, and there's a continuity of the responsibility. And finally, those that leave are the ones that should take on the responsibility. It also refused. They said that the losses should be determined by the Professional Football League, and that the criteria are the audited accounts and those approved by the Assembly, by the General Meeting. It also admitted as valid the reformulation of the incoming Board of Directors. It admits that these uncertainties, it was either 4 and 3, the uncertainties, that had to be adjusted correctly. And here the judge applied a criteria which was well reasoned, and it considered, if it's true, that everything, the exceptions, all of those issues that were accounting incorrections had to be considered. It admitted, therefore, that it was necessary to
Sí, admet que s'havia de registrar les pèrdues o no s'havien de registrar com a benefici la venda de Sant Joan d'Espí.
The sale of Sant Joan d'Espí could not be accepted as a profit, so 14-point-some million could not be accepted. So this accounting correction was correct as an accounting item, but it had to be included in this area, and the 12 million euros needed to be included as a loss. I mean, all of these points were looked at and it confirmed that they should have introduced a 6.9 million loss with the sale of Henri and also the Baena situation. So, it doesn't admit, and this is a very important issue, something important for all of you to understand. One thing is accounting. The judge understood that from an accounting point of view, there are 79.7 million in losses, but when the board of directors were told to pay out of their pockets, we have to go a step beyond that, because one thing are the accounting costs, another thing are the real losses that are seen as a definitive loss. And in this case, we have the concept of the uncertainties. If we don't know if the land in Viladecans can be sold for 820 or 5 million, and if there's been a loss because of the zoning changes, we don't know if in the future we can sell them for 20 million. Therefore, from an accounting point of view, it's correct that there's a deterioration of the asset, and we have to go from 16 to 5, and therefore there's an accounting loss of 11.5, but losses that haven't been consolidated, well, it's not, it couldn't be justified for the board members to pay for that money. And from the point of view of accounting, it was fine, the annotation that there was a deterioration of the asset, but from the point of view of the responsibility action, we cannot ask for them to pay for this concept, because we don't know if someone comes later and builds a casino there, and that man will go up in price. So here's 11.5 taken from the losses. The situation of MediaPro, a company that was going bankrupt, this debt had deteriorated. We didn't know if we would get that money or not. So in accounting, we could take into account a 25% loss because of the risk there is in losing that money. But later, MediaPro was able to overcome those bankruptcy proceedings, and therefore we cannot consider those 3.5 million as a loss. And so it was done properly as far as accounting is concerned, but I cannot claim that because that's, making them pay out of their own pocket is quite an unpleasant thing, a difficult thing to ask for. And then there was the lawsuit of 37.7 million euros from Sogecable, money that they say that they would never pay because they had lost. Initially, they lost the lawsuit, but even though they had lost, they said that this money would not be paid. And 1 month before the assembly, 1.5 months before the general meeting, there was a ruling, and it confirmed what was said, and the club had to pay those 37.7 million euros. Therefore, it had to be taken into the account, it had to be included in the accounting. So this payment of 37.7 million euros in 2012, there was a transaction with Sogecable that said, instead of paying those 37, I'll pay you less because we're all on the same boat. I won't pay the interest and give me a reduction. This transaction came after deliberation, And the judge understood that Football Club Barcelona had not sufficiently credited what the amount of the transaction was, and it didn't know how this transaction had had an impact on the transaction of the annotation of those 37 million. And therefore it says we cannot consider 37 million against people that would have to, that is the members of the board, that would have to pay that out of their own pocket. Now, if we add up all of these 37 million in losses, the 11.5 and 2.3 from MediaPro, it turns out that the negative result as far as responsibility action, I mean, in accounting it's 79.7, but in responsibility action since 2009-2010 attributes these effects, it's 20 million euros. When we do the calculation of the entire period of the term, it says that in that period there are no losses, there's a benefit of 5 million euros, and therefore in that sense the judge ruled against that claim. This is what the ruling says. I've tried to be as objective as possible. I haven't wanted to do judgment values, but this is what the ruling says. Now, the ruling also says something that's quite interesting, and there are many pages, and I'm finishing with this. If we had to have paid, Zurich would have covered our insurance, 25 million, and Sogecable was 25. Zurich insurance would have covered up to 25 million euros. That's also included in the ruling. And another thing that the ruling says, that the costs are not attributed to the loser, which is usually the case, but in this case the ruling did not make the defendant pay for those costs, because in agreement with what is in Article 394, given the novelty of what is included in the suit, it's the first time that before a judicial organ, something of the complexity that has occurred in this lawsuit and the circumstances that are considered in the different areas that have taken place, it is preferable not to make the other party pay for the costs. What it's saying is that no one was acting improperly. Now, before giving the floor to the President, and he will tell you our position concerning this, as a board of directors, the club presented an appeal, but that appeal, as was informed of the president of the board, the idea was not to get them to pay these quantities, because it was said that if it was favorable, then we would not pursue the payment from the individuals of the previous board of directors. The question is, what is the criteria of the responsibility of the board of directors? How can we interpret this? The parameters that basically established what was included. If we look at other criteria, if we try to evaluate what happens ad infinitum, well, this would generate a certain uncertainty with a jurisprudence not in the first but in the second. And since it says it's the first time in the ruling that this happens, well, then it's something where there really isn't a criteria that is consolidated, and we are in the typical setting where
El Tribunal Suprem és competent per resoldre
Supreme
qüestions que
Court
s'apliquen,
can
lleis que s'apliquen per
resolve
primera vegada.
things that occur for the first time to establish a criteria for the interpretation. So we are not in favor or against this criteria, but we do want to know if it is what has to be imposed or not. A recourse, an appeal was introduced, and you'll now hear the presentation of our president, but they also, even though there was a sentence, a ruling that didn't make them to pay, none of them felt comfortable with that. No one felt happy with that ruling because it says what it says, which is what I just told you. It's very difficult. I know there's lots of information there, but they didn't feel comfortable with that either. So the scenario that we currently face is that we have appealed and they have also they have challenged it as well. We are trying to get them to stop with their challenge, because if we pull back from our appeal and they don't withdraw their challenge, then it won't be resolved. So I wanted to give you this explanation so that you could understand this situation. And now the President will continue explaining from his perspective.
Bé, Jordi Calzamiglia, moltes gràcies per la teva...
Thank you, Jordi Calzamiglia, for your explanation. What is clear is that it is a very complex topic and it's hard to understand, and I'm sure it's hard for all of you because it's hard for us and those of us that aren't lawyers. So I don't want to talk about the legal side of this. What I would like to do is to take you back to 2010, October 2010, because at that moment there was an assembly where there was an explanation of this situation in very technical terms.
I també una mica per donar una mica de respecte a tots els compromissaris que en aquell moment van votar favorablement.
Obviously there were those that voted in favor and those that voted against. And I would like to take you there to 2010 with a slide. And this slide, this photograph, was used by President Rossell with some of the thoughts that President Rossell presented for voting in favor or against the responsibility action. So if we can please put up that slide.
A la pantalla. Miren, aquesta va ser la diapositiva que l'any...
was the slide that in October of 2010 was presented to the delegates, where you will see that there were 4 arguments in favor of yes, and there were 5 arguments in favor of voting no concerning this responsibility action. You can read them because you weren't there, but that vote was very close, very close. As a matter of fact, 468 for 39 no's, and there were 113 abstentions. Therefore, it was a very, very close vote. This was the scenario that we found in 2010. Now, Mr. Calzamiglia has given you a rundown, a description of the situation, and I think it's necessary. I thought it was necessary for him to do that before my intervention so that you could know about the legal situation at that moment. And before you vote here, I would ask you to take into account the proposal of this board, to which... Well, I'd like to explain how we're going to ask you this question. And to withdraw this appeal is something that we have listened to very carefully, and I would like to share with you some of the reasons why, well, that have led us to ask you to withdraw this appeal. we have to consider that Football Club Barcelona, we are experiencing some extraordinary moments. We continue with very high sports ambitions. We can compete at the very top. We have a solid economic situation. We've seen the two agreements that we have just signed that mean that we can look at the future optimistically. And here I would like to just add something, an aside. A few days ago, Susanna Monge, the financial director, she resigned for personal reasons. We would like to recognize all of the hard work that she put into the club, and that it's partially responsible for the excellent financial status which we currently enjoy. Many of you heard her at the last assembly, and we also have many projects to carry out. We have a stadium that we want to become the best in the world. We have the new Palau. We have the FC Universitas, related to the world of education. And we saw before that this is a club that has offices in Hong Kong and New York. We're creating schools all over the world. Every day we are giving greater emphasis to our foundation, trying to use the value of sports for these children, and then also all of our supporters associations, our supporter clubs, which are present all over the world. And something important that I would like to highlight is that in 2012, at the general meeting of delegates, it wasn't you, there were other delegates there. The club established a level of indebtedness based on the EBITDA, and this was done because the club wants the boards to be very careful in our management, and we don't want a club that will have serious indebtedness in the future. So I believe that we are living a very good moment, a moment that we can all be satisfied with. There's lots of hard work and ambition behind that. And before the secretary of the board mentioned this, we've been living with this topic for quite some time, and this is something that's been open for a long time. We, the ones on the board, have to take the first step. We are the ones that need to resolve the situation, and we believe that we have done this with the step that we've taken. I would like to tell you that in recent months, talking to different members of the club, different members of our supporters clubs, people look forward. They don't want to have conflicts. They don't want to look backwards. We want to look forward, and we want to close the file, so to speak. And in this case, everyone that I've spoken to is in favor of leaving this conflict behind us, because I think it's good for the club, it's good for the organization, and it's good for all the parts involved, for the club, for the former board of directors, the 17 former directors from the board, and for the insurance company, Zurich. And this means that we should give up our appeal. We should withdraw our appeal. It wasn't only from the club, because it didn't make anyone happy. No one was happy with the result. And I was reading in the press recently that to reach an agreement, you have to be generous. Well, I don't agree. Generous is someone that gives something, not expecting anything in return. But we expect from all the parts an effort. The same responsibility that we're asking from everyone should also be from Zurich, from the former members of the board. I've spoken to them and they agree, because we don't want this
Amb Zúrich, que hem estat parlant aquestes darreres setmanes...
We don't want this wound to be open, to remain open. And Zurich would pay 6.2 million, 3.2 for the costs of both sides, and 3 million that would be paid to close the case.
És la voluntat de Zúrich.
That is what Zurich is in favor of. I think it's a good agreement for the club, for all the parts involved, for all the stakeholders. And here we're not interested in saying who's won and who's lost. That's not what we're looking for. What we want to do is to close this. And all of us believe that with this agreement we all win. And all of the delegates that I've spoken with, all the members, believe the same. And if there is no agreement, we all lose, because Barça would lose.
Jo crec que ara, vist amb el temps, no pas el temps, analitzant tot aquest procés,
time has gone by, and I believe that all of the parts in 2010, well, we acted believing what was, in our opinion, best for the clubs. And this is the law of sport, so we had to bring this to the assembly, and in the same way that all of the directors, the members of the board, thought it was best for the club and for everyone.
So that's what we're doing now. We bring to you this proposal, which we believe is the best thing for the club and for everybody. I must say that this proposal has been well received by most people involved. Out of the 17 former managers, 11 have approved, and the company as well. I want to thank those 11 former directors for their goodwill. I know it wasn't easy for them, but I also believe that they have Barça's best interest in their sides. I want to thank Patrick Auset, Joan Bosch, Joaquim Borràs, Alfonso Castro, Josep Antoni Colomer, Josep Cubells, Jaume Ferrer, Alfons Godall, Mag Dauranic, Albert Perrin, and Jordi Torrent. I want to thank them because it wasn't easy, and I know they're thinking of Barça. I also know that this was not a unanimous agreement, although we did try. Some managers, some directors didn't join this, like Xavier Besset, Elena Foch, Joan Laporta, Josep Ignasi Macià, Xavier Salamartín, and Rafael Juste. Therefore, this is a partial agreement. It is a proposal for an agreement which would mean to dismiss the appeal against Zurich and against all those who accept this proposal. So, I'm asking you to vote freely and decide if you will for our proposal. I don't know if we have the text. Yes. The proposal is to authorize the Board of Directors to give up the appeal for the liability action about the defendants which have signed the agreement to give up their appeal, their challenge. This is what we suggest, thinking of Barça. Now, we're all here to listen to your questions. Please ask as many questions as you want, and I want to thank you all for your attention.
Ens trobem al tercer punt de l'ordre del dia. Per problemes tècnics no us hem pogut oferir la segona votació.
M'acaben d'informar que hem guanyat la Copa Sobal de handball.
Oh, I'm just being told
el secretari de l'Assemblea anuncia que el Barça d'handbol ha guanyat la Copa Sobal. Us deia que s'ha aprovat el segon punt de l'ordre del dia amb 354 vots a favor, 21 en contra i 23 en blanc.
Be brief and to the point, and we'll answer all the questions at the end.
Sí, hola, bona tarda.
Good afternoon.
Em torno a repetir, com els alls. Soc Àngel Lluc, Perales, número 6.552. La meva proposta és la següent. Tot el problema que ha sorgit amb aquesta junta directiva anterior, potser hauríem d'agrair-los que aquest Barça que tenim ara va arrencar en aquells anys. O sigui, que a l'època de la Porta el Barça va ressorgir i va començar a donar-nos alegries, però moltes alegries. Després ha sigut que els problemes econòmics del club han anat variant amunt i avall. Trobo que ser membre d'una junta directiva s'ha de tenir, perdonar l'expressió, uns pebrots molt grossos per posar-se al davant d'un club com és el Club de Futbol Barcelona. Per això jo agrairia a tots els socis que d'una punyetera vegada posem un tupido velo i demano al senyor Laporta i els que estan amb ell amb el Ferrer Sala o el Sala Ferrer que ho deixin córrer ja d'una punyetera vegada. Així mateix ho repeteixo. Deixem-ho córrer i es comencem ja i fem foc nou, com si diguéssim. Tirem endavant ja, perquè aquest Barça l'hem de tirar amunt. Deixem d'estar de mirar al darrere, perquè si mirem al darrere potser passarà com la família Lot, que es van quedar convertits en sal i nosaltres passaríem igual. Tirem endavant, senyors, i els agraeixo que vostès hagin decidit ja retirar aquesta proposta i deixem ja d'això d'una vegada. Moltes gràcies.
Moltes gràcies. El senyor president vol contestar directament a la proposta.
No, volia contestar al senyor Lluc, que gràcies per les seves paraules. Jo abans he posat aquella imatge del 2010, on hi havia els 4 punts a favor i els 5 punts en contra. I veurà que un dels punts, dels 5 punts, que hi havia més punts a favor del no que el sí, un dels punts era aquest. Deia precisament això, que aquella junta directiva havia fet un Barça molt triomfant. Per tant, corroboro les seves paraules i la voluntat d'aquesta junta és el que deia vostè, d'intentar tancar aquesta carpeta i que tots disfrutem d'aquest Barça que avui en dia està arribant també a quotes altíssimes.
Moltes gràcies. Següent pregunta.
Hola, em dic David Aragonès, soci 76.941, i amb el mateix sentit del company compromissari, també voldria fer una petita reflexió, i és que si ara tornem enrere amb el temps, al 2010, doncs tindríem un balanç de comptes que en lloc de 11 milions de benefici, doncs obtindríem 5, si no he entès malament. Per tant, si retornéssim amb el temps, no hi hauria aquesta demanda del Barcelona. Hi ha un culpable, que és, culpable. Hi ha un senyor que no ha fet bé els números, que ha sigut Deloitte, en tot cas, perquè si el jutge diu al final que són 5 de benefici i el senyor Deloitte deia que hi havia 48 en negatiu, vol dir que el senyor Deloitte, ojo, no sé, tot és qüestionable, perquè, en tot cas, el que jo vull dir és que aquella junta va ser molt dolorós. Jo me'n poso amb la pell del president Bartomeu ara i si amb aquests 260 milions o 250 que tenim ara de deute, doncs la propera junta ve aquí als compromissaris i ens diu 4 números i hem d'impugnar la vostra gestió, home, no fotem. Vull dir, tots estem posant tot el millor que podem perquè el Barça sigui gran. Jo estic amb Bartomeu, no estic amb tu, president, estic amb la vostra junta i amb la vostra gestió. Però, home, si hi ha un culpable entre els que van dir ell deveu 11 milions o 48 milions i els que es defensen, home, som nosaltres, el Futbol Club Barcelona, que hauria de dir al senyor Laporta i la seva junta, disculpeu-nos, ens hem equivocat. El jutge diu que hi ha 5, no 11 de benefici, però hi ha beneficis. Per tant, siguem una mica honestos i amb nosaltres mateixos, en tots, mantinguem la nostra voluntat i diguem, miri, escolteu, a tots, inclòs el senyor Salamartí, inclòs el senyor Laporta i la resta que no volen retirar la seva... Escolta, el Barcelona s'oblida d'això, carpeta, tenim molts problemes, van per nosaltres, vostès ho saben,
other things to do with our time, and you know that.
La Fiscalia cada 2 per 3 ens està buscant les pessigolles.
The tax office is after us every other day. So let's just close the matter all together. Let's push together. Visca el Barça.
Senyor Arbonés, gràcies per la seva intervenció. Hi ha una cosa que, a veure, que vull que entenguem tots, que ho ha explicat molt bé el senyor Calsamiglia, és que una cosa són les pèrdues comptables i l'altra les pèrdues a efectes de l'acció de responsabilitat. Les comptables sí que han existit, i el jutge les va confirmar, no recordo ara, és que millor hi ha 5 de benefici. Crec que ara entrar aquestes qüestions si eren menys 48 o més 5 efectes de l'acció de responsabilitat,
for the liability action, I mean, the thing is +5, and accounting is, the booking is -48.
Els recursos que hem fet totes les parts és perquè ningú estava confortable amb la primera sentència.
Everybody has challenged because we were not happy. Nobody was happy. The club wasn't happy. The managers wasn't happy. Zurich wasn't happy. Everybody appealed.
Traiem els recursos.
Now, if we say, okay, let's all withdraw the appeal, let's all withdraw the appeal and we'll stick to the initial ruling, which is what is going to go. At the end of the day, if we accept this. I mean, if we look into figures, really, it's just never going to finish. If it was -48, one was real, the other one was book value. The point is that the club had a huge debt, that's clear, and it has been reduced. Current debt is 110 something. We're trying to
en els estatuts del club, que hi ha una normativa molt clara amb la vida i els ratis d'endeutament. Recordo que fa 2 anys, si us recordo vostès, no ho vam complir. Ara fa 2 exercicis el rati d'endeutament, ho vam arreglar l'any passat, tornant a complir-ho. Per tant, és bo tenir mecanismes de control de les juntes directives, perquè al final tots els socis que volem és tenir un club per sempre sostenible i que duri per tota la vida, i que no tingui problemes. Jo crec que amb el canvi estatutari que vam fer l'any 2012,
in the bylaw in 2012, the delegates that signed in favor of the reform, I think that we managed to make sure that neither we nor nobody else in the future could go crazy and do something weird and have a bigger debt. No, we've got to be careful, and that's why very often, if you see in media, you may see that there are investments in players or whatever, and we can't do that, and we'd love to. Without naming names, in January last year, there was a player, I won't name names, who Barça wanted to sign him in January. We had lots of money, but we didn't stick to the ratio of indebtedness, and we didn't do it, and that was fine. We won the league, and the King's Cup. We didn't win the Champions, but I mean, we couldn't do it. Perhaps if we hadn't had that article in the bylaws and we could have signed that guy, perhaps, things might have been different, but we would have had a higher debt to EBITDA ratio. But at any rate, I agree with you. Let's put the matter to rest. And what's good for Barça is what we all want in our hearts.
Següent pregunta.
Next question.
Santiago Pérez,
Santiago Pérez,
soci 986. La meva intervenció és per dir que em sembla una assemblea molt correcta i agradable de fer, però penso que podria millorar estèticament. Si vostès, a l'hora d'aixecar la cartolina de votació, esperessin una mica i no l'aixequessin al principi. Esperessin que els socis aixequin la seva i vostès després aixequin la seva, amb tot el dret del món que tenen per aixecar.
Res més que això.
Doncs miri, ho farem a suggeriment de vostès, esperarem, tot i que la nostra voluntat és que vostès votin afirmativament, no és la nostra, també és de totes les parts que han decidit també treure recurs, que votin a favor de treure aquest recurs, però evidentment esperarem uns instants fins que vostès es manifestin.
Thank you.
Hola, bona tarda. Soc Pau Sorribes, soci 58.314. I bé, primer de tot voldria preguntar el motiu pel qual no hi ha hagut acord amb, si no m'equivoco, 6 dels directius, per què no hi ha hagut acord, per què no s'han posat d'acord. tampoc m'acaba d'agradar la perspectiva que es dona de la junta directiva sortint del president Laporta el 2010, no vol pactar, nosaltres volem tancar ferides, volem mirar endavant, tancar carpetes, i són ells els que no volen pactar. No m'acaba d'agradar la postura aquesta de culpa seva o són ells que no volen pactar, nosaltres ho hem intentat. M'agrada la postura de no obrir ferides entre el barcelonisme, però crec que els motius que ha exposat el president són aplicables també el 2010 i el 2014. Crec que personalment l'herència esportiva que van heretar és immillorable. En el primer any de president de Sant Roser van aconseguir guanyar la Champions League i segur que hi van tenir participació, però espero que entenguin que l'equip, el club que van heretar els ho va permetre. Crec que són elements que tot sovint s'obliden o no s'acaben d'esmentar i crec que són molt importants. Bé, el president ha dit que no vol un ball de números a nivell de pèrdues, de 4 milions de beneficis. Crec que una mica l'acció de responsabilitat és això, és un ball de números en el qual s'intenta veure si l'obra de govern del president Laporta i la seva junta directiva va presentar beneficis o no. I bé, també voldria preguntar-li, president, en el cas que finalment no hi hagi acord, que entenc que no n'hi haurà amb 6 dels exdirectius, si la sentència del pròxim mes no els hi dona la raó, m'agradaria saber si tenen previst recórrer al Tribunal Suprem i si pensen fer-ho, com casa això amb el fet que volen mirar endavant i tancar ferides. M'avanço a la possible resposta donat que no tenim dret a rèplica amb motiu d'agilitzar les nostres participacions. Moltes gràcies per la seva atenció.
Ara parlava de... Aquí no hi ha bons i dolents,
I mean, there are no good guys and bad guys. Yeah, we're all Barça followers here. We're not saying that some people wanted to agree, others no. No. I mean, there was a meeting. There was an explanation. Everybody agrees that it's good for Barça to just withdraw the appeal and just close the case. The people who are not in favor of this, I don't know why. They have not given me an explanation. They are entitled to going on with the appeal if they so desire.
Haurem de seguir aquest recurs, perquè ens agradaria no seguir ja, però seguim aquest recurs i sabrem d'aquí unes setmanes o mesos que a febrer o març ens hi haurà una resolució al recurs. Però surti el que surti, alguna part que no li agradarà el que surti. Per tant, és impossible que haguem de seguir, perquè ara el que tractem ara és parar-ho i mai sabrem si guanyen uns, guanyen els altres. No hi ha vençuts ni vencedors, dit abans. Es tracta d'això ara. No hi ha vençuts ni vencedors. Però, esclar, si seguim endavant i no agrada, nosaltres com a directiva haurem de pensar sempre què és millor pel club. Ja ho pensarem també després. Ara no ho hem parlat. Jo espero doncs que sempre hi ha temps a vegades a les coses, però en aquest cas vostè parla abans d'herències, no? Vam rebre, ja que parlem, tornem al 2010, en aquella època, el club estava molt bé esportivament, però també estava molt malament econòmicament. Vull abans vam tenir que fer una sèrie d'accions, una sèrie de ventes de jugadors, o inclús vam tenir que fer patrocinis per ajudar. Jo crec que ara, tornar a remoure el que va passar el 2010, clar, el club ara no és com aleshores.
The club is not the way it was back then in terms of money. We're now very sustainable, and that inspires trust and confidence for the future. I think that future boards will find a club that, I don't know, I hope it's going to be really good in sporting terms, but economically it's going to definitely be solid.
El tema de les pèrdues, jo torno a insistir, les pèrdues comptables a la demanda, a la sentència, el jutge no s'hi posa. Diu, són correctes les pèrdues dels 40 milions. Són correctes i així estan reflexades a la comptabilitat i estan auditades. L'únic que diu el jutge és, a efectes de la banda de responsabilitat, hi ha una sèrie de pèrdues que no estaven consolidades el 2010, eren provisions, i per això les redueix i les posa com a benefici de 5 milions del mandat. Però comptablement de fet estan consolidant. Per tant, no és l'únic aquest debat,
terms, there is the 48 million losses. But at any rate, that's a whole other matter that would require expert opinions. I do not know why those 6 directors don't want to sign the agreement. They may say, have their say after the assembly. We are happy to listen to everybody. But the 11 people who've agreed, and Zurich as a company, let's not forget that Zurich is going to contribute 6.2 million euros to cover legal costs for everybody. And that's also going to be money for the club. Great. But Zurich is just going to say, okay, show us your goodwill. I also want to close the matter.
Però per nosaltres, la veritat que si vostès avui voten que sí...
I mean, if you vote yes today, I think that would be a great step for our future. To close the matter, to close the wound, heal the wound, and have all Barça followers enjoy in peace this wonderful sporting moment we are having.
Següent pregunta.
Bona tarda, em dic Josep Maria Puigbernau i soc el soci 36.732. Estic molt content, jo votaré que sí, efectivament, però vull donar també la raó del perquè. Un paper ho aguanta tot. I avui el que ha quedat demostrat aquí és que si el posem del dret i del revés, dic que estic molt content perquè el Barça no ha perdut diners. El que sí ha perdut és imatge, personalitat i molt temps amb els mitjans. Moltíssim. I vostès i tots estem demanant que aquí es produeixi la pau social. Molt bé, però aquesta pau social no es produirà fins que el senyor Laporta, d'una banda, i el senyor Sandro Rossell, per una altra, estiguessin aquí, que hauria de ser la seva obligació també, que com a expresidents tenen el dret a poder acudir al que és una assemblea i també de participar almenys a escoltar què és el que se'ls diu i què és el que se'ls parla. Diu vostè que són moltes coses difícils d'entendre i d'explicar. Senyor Bartomeu, efectivament, aquesta és una molt grossa. Però inclús jo diria, i no vull fer memòria de tot el que són els últims temps passats. Potser si això s'ho hagués plantejat en una assemblea on s'haguessin produït coses que s'han produït amb els temps posteriors, em refereixo a les documentacions i acusacions FIFA, al que han sigut doncs una gran contractació com va ser la del senyor Neymar, etc. Potser fora menys creïble algunes de les coses que aquí avui s'han posat. Torno a dir, estic molt content. El Barça no ha perdut diners. Hem posat els números d'una banda o d'una altra i resulta que volem tindre la pau social. A veure si d'una vegada ho donem. Però jo torno a dir, no es produirà aquesta pau social si d'alguna manera no aconseguim entre tots, i vostès ho tenen a la mà, de poder aconseguir que el senyor Laporta i el senyor Rossell, un, el més triat, el més votat en unes eleccions, i l'altre potser en els últims anys, el que més triomfos i més ha aconseguit donar una volta amb aquest Barça i posar-lo en una rampa de llançament, es podria aconseguir. Una altra cosa que una altra vegada voldria dir. Estic en febre, no sé ni què hi dir ni qui parlar. Ho lamento molt. Però em sap molt de greu amb un tema com avui, que estem buscant la pau social. Gràcies, nois, quasi 500 que han pogut vindre, però tots els altres que vagin discutint després a veure el Barça espanyol. Bona tarda i visca el Barça.
There should be more of us, and we're all going to go and watch the match after this. Thank you.
Bé, nosaltres, evidentment, compartim les seves paraules, evidentment, però jo sí que voldria tornar al principi de la intervenció del Jordi Calsamiglia, al principi, que parlava de la llei del deporte. La Junta, en aquell moment, l'any 2010, no teníem cap altre camí que portar a l'Assemblea Compromissaris la possible acció de responsabilitat. No teníem altre camí en vista de les xifres que tenia el club. Era la llei que ens portava a portar allí i és a votar. Abans parlava del senyor Sandro Rossell i del senyor Joan Laporta. Jo puc parlar del que he dit abans, no? Aquella imatge que hem tret abans al principi de l'any 2010 són els arguments que va aportar el president Rossell. Fixi's que hi havia més arguments cap al no que cap al sí. I el discurs del senyor Rossell, que va fer aquell moment, era un discurs que convidava més a la votació, crec, cap al no que cap al sí. Per això va ser tot molt ajustat. Per tant, jo crec que en aquest aspecte s'han vist, ens hem vist tots.
I mean, we have all met. We've all met.
presidents ens hem vist en molts actes. Bueno, aquí no han vingut.
Met in many events, but not here. Not here. They didn't want to be here. No, that's up to them.
Això, jo crec que en aquest aspecte, no sé com pensen l'un i l'altre, però sí que puc dir la seva actuació. I el 2010, doncs, jo vull recalcar que el president Rossell, realment en el seu discurs, que vostès no hi eren, pocs va fer-hi, els que hi érem, evidentment, ell pretenia, explicant una situació més al no, i per això va ser tan ajustat, va ser molt ajustat.
As a result, that's why things were so tight.
Passem la paraula a...
Em dic Joan Vizcarri Esquius, soci 4.665. Bé, com vostè ha dit, amb la votació de l'acció de responsabilitat hi van haver una diferència de 33 vots. El senyor Rossell va votar en blanc, me'n recordo, i tots els directius que hi havia van votar a favor de l'acció de responsabilitat.
The liability claim. No, it was 50-50. 999.
Perdó, doncs llavors aquest no és un argument, però la diferència escassa sí que hi va ser. Llavors, un acte de generositat per part de vostès, ja que vostè ha explicat molt bé que els resultats econòmics han fet que estigui el Barça més consolidat i que en aquests moments no tenen perill que se'ls executin amb vostès amb el futur els avals en aquests moments, doncs seria que vostès ho retiressin a tots, no els 11, sinó tots, encara que no hagin pactat. Jo crec que això seria un acte de generositat. És les ferides s'han de tancar. Jo crec que aquest seria un... Jo això sí que diria xapó.
Now that I would take my hat off to. That's all. Thank you.
A veure, ja és un tema més legal, la seva pregunta que fa vostè, senyor Vizcarri, però, a veure, segons els advocats, el Barça pot retirar, potser que es contesti.
Evidentment, que això es pot fer. Podem desistir contra tots, el que passa és que no es tanca el pleit. Perquè, clar, hi ha una impugnació que ells han presentat i continua el pleit exclusivament respecte a la impugnació. L'objectiu és tancar el pleit. Sí, es pot fer, però no tanquem el pleit. Aquí el que s'ha de buscar és un acord perquè tanquem el pleit, no? Però sí que es pot fer.
Which is what we want to do.
A l'esquerra, sisplau.
Bona tarda. Soc Salvador Martínez, 32.411. Ara el secretari ha parlat de tancar el pleit. Si els contraris no volen tancar el pleit, quines conseqüències pecuniàries podria tindre pel club això? I després hem parlat de la companyia d'assegurances. La companyia d'assegurances és part contrària. Desconec el límit de la cobertura de la pòlissa, però entenc que se'm va malament, he entès 25 milions. Home, és part contrària, ells surten guanyant, s'estalvien 18 milions d'euros. Entenc que la gestió en aquest aspecte podria ser millor.
Contestaré jo la primera pregunta perquè és més tècnica. Si nosaltres desistim del recurs i ells no desisteixen, es dictarà una sentència que solament tractarà aquelles qüestions que hagin posat sobre la taula els que no hagin presentat el recurs. És una situació una mica paradògica, que hagin presentat el recurs i ells després hagin afegit perquè nosaltres hem presentat el recurs, nosaltres desistim i ells no desisteixen, hi haurà una sentència. Home, que es tracta, en definitiva, en aquests moments, és de tancar i en el fons el que fem és que acceptem la sentència que s'ha dictat en primera instància tal com està feta. I això es pot interpretar com vulguis, ells podran considerar que evidentment aquí no han tingut que reintegrar cap quantitat i per tant en aquest sentit se'ls ha reconegut, en cert sentit, que tenen les seves raons per haver-se oposat. Per altra banda, el club té ja una interpretació en relació a com s'ha de quantificar les pèrdues als efectes de l'acció de responsabilitat. I el de la companyia Zurich, la companyia Zurich té un risc de 25 milions, però és un risc. No sabem com podrà acabar aquest ple i, per tant, no tenim garantit que això ho guanyem en segona o al Tribunal Suprem. No se sap el que pot passar. És un tema, com he llegit abans, quan el jutge feia aquella expressió, quan parlava de les costes, i és que és un tema tan complicat, que ben bé els contornos són tan confusos i és un tema que té una certa complexitat perquè hi ha una llei que jo considero que en el seu sentit és una llei una mica perversa i això és el que ha passat ara. Zurich aquí fa un esforç també per ajudar a tancar aquest pleit.
Bona tarda. José Felipe Bertran, soci 77.616. He escoltat la vostra presentació i m'ha quedat el dubte sobre els terrenys de Viladecans. Voldria saber què ha passat amb ells i quins plans teniu pel futur.
Bé, els terrenys de Viladecans són del club. Els va comprar el club ja fa uns anys, estan allà. No hi ha cap ús per aquests terrenys, no s'està fent cap projecte. Aquesta directiva, si fa falta aquests terrenys en el futur, els podem utilitzar, els podem vendre per futures directives. Al final és un patrimoni que hi ha allà, en el valor que ara tingui actualment a les llibres, però nosaltres o futures directives potser ho podem utilitzar. De moment, nosaltres com a directiva no estem fent res més que cuidar el nostre actiu.
We're not doing anything other than just, looking after our assets.
Qui vas que respecte?
Em dic Paco Muñoz. 5.997. Crec que pocs socis han defensat aquesta Junta tant com jo als mitjans socials. Però ara ve el però. No me crec aquest acord. No me crec aquest acord perquè el senyor Laporta fa un mes ha intentat boicotejar l'acord de Neymar. Aquest acord no m'ho crec. Jo anava a votar a favor si firmaven tots. Com que no firmen tots, les carpetes no s'apunten. Se queda dentro oberta i quan hi ha obertures entra pols també. Per tant, votarem blanc. Perquè votar no me sembla bé. Però no me crec al senyor Laporta que sembla que està intentant l'ego, jo, i sobre algo per mi. Bona tarda.
It's just always me, myself and I with Mr. Laporta. Thank you.
Jo li diré només el que jo votaré sobretot pensant en el club, pensant el que és millor pel club i si hi ha algunes persones que no volen desistir del seu recurs, com són aquests 6 directius, tenen tota la llibertat per fer-ho, no passa res, si això és lliure de cada un. Però també els diria una cosa, els que votin que sí pensin que estem votant perquè el club Zurich, però també 11 exdirectius s'han posat d'acord i són els directius que també prenen una decisió de bona voluntat pensant també en el club ells. Per tant, crec que beneficia anar tancant, potser no tanquem del tot la carpeta, però estem tancant ferides. Jo crec que aquests directius fan un esforç molt gran i els hem d'agrair moltíssim a ells.
The directors are making an effort and we've got to be grateful to them.
Hola, bona tarda.
Good afternoon.
Soc Antonio Fonoll,
My name is Antonio Fonoll.
soci número 19.349.
19.349.
Em sembla molt bé que la Junta i els socis i tal puguem mirar d'acabar de solventar els problemes. Però amb el que no n'estic conforme és amb la primera Junta que van...
The first board.
Sí, amb el 2010.
2010, yes.
O sigui que amb l'expresident Laporta li van comptar un termini, em sembla, de 3 mesos com si fos tota una temporada. Possiblement, si s'hagués acabat la temporada, potser sortirien les comptes, que de fet ja van bastant ajustades. Res més.
No, miri, van comptar 7 dies. Jo li puc dir perquè jo era membre d'aquelles directives. No, 3 mesos, no. 7 dies ens van comptar perquè en lloc de prendre possessió del càrrec l'1 de juliol, quan comença la temporada, van prendre el càrrec, crec que va ser el dia 22 de juny, 23 de juny del 2003, parla vostè,
2003.
va ser això. Mira, al final la llei és la llei, no? Hi ha una llei que pot agradar-te o no, però és el que hem de respectar. Jo podria estar com a soci d'acord amb vostè, però al final hi ha una normativa legal que és la que hem de seguir.
Gràcies. Qui mà esquerra, sisplau?
Here on the left.
Ja es pot parlar. Bueno. Rafael Bullol, soci número 80.
Number 80.
Jo no volia parlar, però per donar a conèixer a l'Assemblea de l'assistència que jo vaig assistir a aquella reunió. En aquella reunió hi va haver la votació que va sortir majoritàriament per acusar a la directiva de la Porta. A l'hora de la votació, el senyor Rossell va votar en blanc. Jo vaig votar en blanc. Ara, perquè vegi el senyor Laporta que es deixi de punyetes de buscar pessigolles amb els socis i el club i fem una unió de tots. Per això ho he recordat amb aquesta junta. Visca el Barça i visca Catalunya.
Visca el Barça, visca Catalunya.
Miri, hi ha un... No, senyor Rafel. Recordo que vostè va estar allà, aquella junta, el 2010, també el senyor Rovira, que estava per aquí abans. Els que són senadors, evidentment, han vingut a cada una de les assemblees que hem fet i també van estar en aquella. I la seva contribució, evidentment, va ser la que és. Però torno a repetir-ho, en aquella assemblea, al moment de votar, jo vull recordar que el president Rossell ens va dir a tots nosaltres, ens va donar moments, minuts per pensar-ho, perquè és important, va donar raons pel sí, va donar raons pel no, no va voler decantar i ell finalment va decidir, evidentment, té tot el dret a fer-ho, de dir, escolta, jo prefereixo votar en blanc, com molta gent va votar. Per això l'ordre va ser ajustat també, perquè hi havia 4 a favor del sí, 5 raons a favor del no. Però va ser tot ben legítim. Hi havia una pregunta que feia abans, ha fet un dels socis d'aquí, que preguntava els altres 6 que han dit que no. Jo el que sí diria és que els que de moment no han volgut acostar-se a l'acord, sí que evidentment per respecte als 11 que dic que sí, evidentment sempre podem parlar, sempre es pot parlar, però primer jo els demanaria que parlessin amb els seus excompanys. Jo donaria, un cop nosaltres votem avui, si surt que sí, evidentment nosaltres dilluns mateix, demà mateix o dimarts, retirarem els recursos contra els 11 directius, els recursos contra Zúrich, ho retirarem de seguida, ells també ho faran segurament de seguida, i els altres 6 sempre podem parlar, però primer ens demanem que parlem amb els seus companys, els que han sigut valents, els que han volgut de seguida posar-se a treballar de costat i tancar aquesta carpeta, doncs que jo els diré primer parlen amb ells, perquè també es deuen aquests 11 que tenen tot el nostre respecte, evidentment, i que parlen amb ells de cara que si ells ens ho diuen, nosaltres tenim cap inconvenient també en treure els recursos als altres 6 persones, sempre i quan els altres 11 també estiguin d'acord que els companys ho facin posteriorment, perquè al final els 11 que han signat aquest acord, conjuntament amb Zúrich, doncs la veritat és que ho he dit abans, molt bona voluntat, molt bona predisposició, i estic segur que ho han fet pensant en el Barça primer.
Una altra intervenció. Bona tarda. Bona tarda. Em dic Andreu Costa, que era el número de socis 760. Jo l'únic que vull dir que jo votaré el que li vagi bé al Barcelona. No estic d'acord ni amb el senyor Laporta ni amb el senyor Rossell. No vaig votar a cap dels dos a cap eleccions. I això que he anat a totes les del Barcelona, des de l'any 20 que estic aquí.
el senyor Laporta perquè una persona que no anava a la seva personalitat de xulesca. I el senyor Rossell el creia una altra persona perquè almenys que podia fer era dir senyors socis, plego perquè no m'interessa això. Se'n va anar i no va dir res. Per tant, només li vull dir que vostès, si surt que tenim d'actuar, com sigui la majoria, aniré jo amb ells.
The result is one way or another, I will stand with the majority. Visca el Barça, visca Catalunya.
Senyor Costa, moltes gràcies per les seves paraules.
Thank you very much for your words.
Plenament pensem en això. Però jo sí que li diria una
cosa.
cosa.
We all feel the same, but I would like to say one thing. From 1920,
no ens digui qui va votar el 2015, No ens ho digui qui va votar el 2015.
Don't tell us who you voted for in 2015.
Sí. No es preocupi que això també ho vam fer a casa meva.
Don't worry.
La meva família també va fer el mateix que el senyor Núñez.
My family did the same.
Miri, deixi'm parlar una cosa. No, deixi'm respondre-li una pregunta.
Let me respond one thing.
Sí. Senyor Costa, jo el que li diria, per no entrar en persones,
in order not to talk about specific people, is that the presidents that we've had throughout the history, all of them have added, they brought something to the club. They've all helped Barcelona as a club to grow. Mr. Laporta, Mr. Rossell, and also we have Mr. Montal, Mr. Carrasco, Mr. Núñez, Mr. Enric Reina, Gaspart.
No, però jo vull dir-li que
everyone that has been president of Barcelona, everyone that's been a member of the board, they have wanted to bring something to the club. And you mentioned two, Rossell and Laporta, and they did that as well. They made decisions thinking about the best for the club. We can make mistakes, we can be right, we can be wrong, but we don't do it on purpose. So that's why Barcelona is what it is. It is where it is. Because from the first president until the last, all of us have been bringing something, have been adding something. And so it's important that there be a recognition of that. And of course, the members, the club members.
Digues que no li escolten l'altres companys de la Junta.
When you speak without a microphone, the others can't hear you.
Vinga. Següent intervenció.
Next intervention, please.
Hola, bona tarda. Good afternoon. I'm Josep Maria Segura. I am
604.
Jo vull agrair a la Junta actual.
I would like to thank the current board for all the work they've done to close many of these files, to put some of these situations to rest. And I would like for
de recomanar al senyor Laporta de prendre una actitud per acabar amb aquesta situació que enfronta barcelonistes entre si. Jo només voldria prendre si la Junta de Compromissaris pot prendre aquest acord per fer aquesta recomanació al senyor Laporta, al senyor Ferran Martínez de 3-4.
I am just suggesting that we tell them this, that this be sent to them on our behalf.
Senyor Segura, gràcies per la seva aportació. Bé, nosaltres, evidentment, ho he dit abans, sempre estem oberts a seguir parlant, a seguir xerrant, a seguir reunint-nos amb tothom després de l'assemblea, i si s'aprova, evidentment, aquestes 6 persones estarà obert. Jo sí que diré que en aquestes 6 persones, si algun dia volen parlar, m'agradaria també parlar-ne amb els seus excompanys, que aquests que han fet el pas endavant, i que siguin ells també els que el guiïn en aquest camí, que pensem que és aquest camí de la concòrdia, el camí de tancar carpetes i d'aconseguir aquestes ferides tancar-les.
To close the wound and to continue to move forward with the club.
Bona tarda.
Good afternoon.
Em dic Robert Puigmartí
I am Robert
i tinc el
Puigmartí,
790.
I have 790.
Jo vaig a tenir una reunió fa 2 dies de compromissaris i em penso que n'hi ha 4.000 i érem 14. Un d'ells és aquest senyor que acaba de baixar cap avall. Bueno, jo només us vull explicar sobre el senyor Don Joan Laporta i el seu ramat. Aquests portaven a la butxaca la targeta aquesta, com es diu el negre? Black. Portaven la targeta black i anaven per tot el món passejant-se. Els millors hotels, les estrelles.
No, però ara no estem per fer.
No, we're not here for that.
Doncs ja sabeu el que és el senyor. I a vosaltres us dono les gràcies perquè sou l'única directiva que no heu apujat
that has not abused,
els abonaments.
that has not increased the cost, the price of the members.
Bona tarda. Sou Mario Montoliu, número 18.
Montoliu.
He estat a totes aquestes juntes que heu parlat i no és que tingui ni un bon record ni un mal record, però celebro al senyor Bartomeu i companyia que podem arribar a un acord, que això està per veure, perquè la justícia és una cosa, però el que determina és el jutge al final diu sí o no. Això m'agradaria moltíssim que es pogués tancar. Sabem com és el senyor Laporta, etc. Però això no ens condueix enlloc. Per tant, jo us dono les gràcies de la labor que heu fet i que arribem a un total i bon acord. Bona tarda.
Good afternoon to everyone, and I hope we can take this to a good...
Senyor Montoliu, moltes gràcies. És cert que vostè també és un dels senadors del club, que molt actiu, ve a moltes reunions i fan bones aportacions sempre. Jo vull que sapiguem els compromissaris més joves que esteu aquí, hi ha uns compromissaris que són els senadors, que també ens veiem a l'assemblea de compromissaris, també ens veiem normalment a la reunió de senadors i que sempre ens donen a nosaltres els consells, perquè totes les situacions que venim al club sempre s'han viscut abans, en altres èpoques, i estem aquest record històric i moltes coses, vostè ens ho dirà, molts cops hi ha decisions que prenem que vostès diuen feu d'aquesta manera perquè l'any 30, l'any 40, l'any 50 ja va succeir i el vam solucionar d'aquesta manera.
Jo vaig ser compromissari la primera vegada quan va sortir el senyor Núñez i des d'aquell dia jo vaig demanar a la Junta que els carnets de soci s'actualitzessin, perquè si no resulta que tenim
identity cards, our members' identity cards, to be updated because there were more that were deceased than alive.
Que per anar-hi hi hagués un metge o algú del club perquè hi havia les trampes corresponents. No és això?
Des de l'àrea social, Josep Cardoner es va encarregar de fer un bon cens l'any passat i ja està bé. Tothom va
did an excellent job updating all that.
Moltes gràcies.
Thank you.
Bona tarda.
Good afternoon.
Última intervenció.
Last intervention.
Hola, bona tarda. Soc Toni Estany i 6.039 de soci. Jo en principi estic content per la proposta que ens dona la Junta de tancar la carpeta. O sigui, perquè penso que hem de pensar en el Barça i deixar-nos de personalismes i d'històries aquestes. Amb el senyor Laporta jo li demanaria una cosa. Jo el vaig votar. Ara no el votaria. Per moltes circumstàncies i per moltes coses. Jo li he d'agrair al senyor Laporta que acabés amb la violència del camp. I els èxits esportius també els hi he de reconèixer perquè van ser a la seva època. Però també hi ha una cosa, tenint el Xavi, el Messi, l'Iniesta, el Busquets i el Piqué, n'hi hauria molts que tindrien aquests èxits probablement. I per tant jo li demanaria al senyor Laporta que deixés el protagonisme, que actués com a expresident, que és un expresident més i que tots els presidents del Barça són bons, no n'hi ha hagut cap de dolent, perquè tots han posat bona voluntat i interès i deixés del seu personalisme a part. Dit això, jo demanaria a la Junta una cosa, no anar mai més a la justícia. Perquè la justícia, quan ha de jutjar a Catalunya o al Barça, jo tinc els meus dubtes. Res més, visca el Barça i visca Catalunya lliure.
Moltes gràcies. Ha acabat el torn d'intervencions.
Fairness. So, thank you very much, and visca el Barça. Okay, that's the end of the intervention.
Nosaltres també estem d'acord, ho he dit abans, que aquí les juntes directives i els presidents de la història, totes han portat coses bones pel Barça. Millors, més encert o menys encert, però totes. I per això torno a dir-ho que avui en dia que el Barça sigui un club que lidera el món de l'esport, és un dels líders del món de l'esport, no és mèrit d'una persona, dos o tres, és de moltíssima gent, de molta gent, i sobretot dels socis, que recolzem any rere any el nostre club. Per tant, és
throughout our history, including the members such as
yourselves.
So we don't want any
personal egos. I ara, un cop que hem acabat de parlar tots, m'agradaria que posessin la pregunta, si la poden posar, la pregunta que ara els farà el secretari de la Junta. Bé, el que els demanem és senzill i complex a la vegada. És a dir, és tancar una carpeta, tanquem un plet, sortim de l'àmbit judicial, si hi ha diferències, com deia el senyor també, estany ara, portem-lo a l'àmbit més del club, i tenim exemples de socis que han anat a l'àmbit judicial. Zúrich està d'acord a tancar aquesta carpeta i posa uns diners per ajudar a que el cost sigui el mínim possible o sigui zero per totes les persones que han participat i també pel club a nivell judicial, per això hi posa. Hi ha 11 directius, exdirectius, evidentment, que amb la bona voluntat també pensen, deixen enrere la seva qüestió personal i pensen en el club i diuen, endavant amb aquest acord, perquè podrien pensar en ells mateixos i dir, no, jo m'interessa personalment, no, deixen de pensar en ells i pensen en tots nosaltres, amb els socis i amb el club. I també hi ha 6 exdirectius i també la porta que prefereixen no fer-ho. Jo torno a dir-ho, ara votarem el que votarem, però aquestes 6 persones, evidentment, el club està obert a seguir parlant-ne, demà, demà passat, l'altre. Si estan d'acord, també, si en el futur ells veiessin que seria bo treure-ho, jo els demanaré aquestes 6 persones que primer parlin amb els seus 11 companys que s'hi han tirat endavant, perquè són ells els que han fet aquest esforç. Però avui el que farem és votar per això, per aquests 11, pel club, pels 11 exdirectius i per Zúrich, de tancar aquesta carpeta d'una forma definitiva i sortir de l'àmbit. Nosaltres ara el que farem serà, votarem més tard, com ha demanat abans un dels compromissaris, ha demanat que votem uns segons més tard, jo els demano companys que voteu uns segons més tard, perquè siguin vostès els que decideixin i ho fan en llibertat, amb tota la informació que tenen, inclús la informació que ha fet el secretari de la Junta, que ha sigut molt extensa, perquè és un tema complex, molt densa, però bé, al final, si ho reduïm cap a d'una manera més senzilla, els que no som advocats, és això, intentem portar concòrdia i que tots els culers puguem viure la situació actual del barcelonisme tots amb les mateixes ganes i força i que no hi hagi algú que estigui trist per una situació que viu que no és del seu agrat. Gràcies.
Passem, doncs, a fer la votació, com les altres votacions, els que estiguin a favor d'autoritzar aquesta Junta Directiva a desistir del recurs d'apel·lació relatiu a l'acció de responsabilitat respecte als demandats que hagin signat l'acord a desistir de la seva impugnació, amb la seva variable d'obrir les portes a admetre altres renúncies o altres desistiments. Els que estiguin a favor, que votin sí.
Doncs moment de la votació d'aquesta proposta sobre l'acció de responsabilitat que consisteix en retirar el recurs sobre la sentència en primera instància sobre la demanda d'acció social de responsabilitat. El president ha explicat que existeix un acord amb l'asseguradora Zúrich i acord parcial amb 11 dels exdirectius. 6, de moment, no han subscrit aquest acord. Pel president del Barça, Josep Maria Bartomeu, és un acord sense vençuts ni vencedors, és una carpeta que fa molts anys que està oberta i que la Junta fa aquest pas per tancar-la. La voluntat de mirar endavant i cap als reptes i els projectes actuals. Aquest és el moment de la votació. Els socis compromissaris presents a la sala estan votant aquest tercer punt de l'ordre del dia. Recordem que fins ara ja s'han votat els primers punts de l'ordre del dia, el primer i el segon, el patrocini amb Rakuten, també aquest acord amb Mission Hills pel projecte de Haiku, la primera votació amb 377 vots a favor, 4 en contra i 5 en blanc, i la segona, l'acord amb Mission Hills, s'ha aprovat per 364 vots a favor. En principi quedarien 2 punts de l'ordre del dia, el quart, les propostes dels socis, i el cinquè, el punt del torn obert d'intervencions. Hem començat aquesta assemblea extraordinària a 2:45 de la tarda. Com abans comentàvem, s'han aprovat ja els 2 primers punts de l'ordre del dia, el patrocini amb Rakuten i l'acord amb Mission Hills, i ara s'està a punt de conèixer els resultats d'aquesta proposta de la Junta respecte a l'acció de responsabilitat. Doncs fins aquí aquesta assemblea general extraordinària. S'ha aprovat aquest últim punt de l'ordre del dia amb 328 vots a favor, 24 en contra i 24 en blanc. Per tant, es retirarà aquest recurs contra la sentència en primera instància sobre la demanda d'acció social de responsabilitat i el president ha explicat que hi ha acord parcial amb 11 exdirectius. Posem el punt i final a aquesta retransmissió que hem començat, com us dèiem, a 2:45. Moltes gràcies per la seva atenció i fins la propera.